To tell you some of the ground rules from yesterday, we have this lovely machine up here. And when you come up to the podium, you've got 3 minutes. When it turns yellow, you'll have 30 seconds. When it turns red, your time will be up, and it gives us obnoxious beep. One poor gentleman started beeping on him. I thought it was this. It was actually his timer himself. So if you hear an obnoxious beep, it's our timer. Once you demonstrate it for him, we'll take just a minute. It's worth letting you know what it does. But welcome to the meeting tonight. We're going to take group 12 first. So if you're group 12, when we get started, just come on up and testify. Now we're going to treat this like a courtroom. In other words, there's no booing, no hissing, no clapping, none of that. I will clear the room if that happens. And I've done it before. So work with us on this. We want to hear everybody's testimony tonight.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I might, while we're still waiting.
Go ahead.
I think last night went very well civilly.
It's yellow now. We'll wait another few seconds, it'll go red.
And I just want to acknowledge that and thank everybody that might have been here last night. And if we just urge continuation of the same tonight, I think that will get us along in our meeting very well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. And that's the obnoxious beep. So I wanted you to know about that. Now, when you come up, you'll have 3 minutes. I need you to state your name, spell your last name. And we need to know what part of Anchorage you live in. That's one of our requirements. We need to know what part of Anchorage you live in. And Amy, do you have anything from yesterday you'd like to add today?
Mr. Chair, I always have something to say. But no, I just want to say that, you know, I thought yesterday's hearing went extremely well. People were very respectful. We know this is an emotionally charged item, so whether you agree or disagree with somebody, just be respectful and listen quietly. Mr. Chair, did you want to make an announcement of as far as what the body intends to do?
Well, I know what I intend to do, and that's to get through testimony tonight and then close the public hearing, but take no action tonight other than moving whatever version we're going to move forward. And I'll call on some member to make that motion, and then there'll be no action taken tonight.
Okay, so then...
Because we need time to look at what's in front of us and any potential amendments.
So then for the public, what that means is it's our anticipation that when the full body is back on September 29th, which is our regularly scheduled meeting, that's the day that we will debate the item, amend if applicable, and then potentially vote on it.
Because I want every member to vote on this issue. It's that important that we need to have everybody here to vote. Nobody be allowed to be gone. You what? Well, you can leave, and we'll run back and forth and push your button.
If he votes twice, Mr. Chair, I move that I get a double or nothing.
Anyway, like I said, let's get started now with those that are in Block 12. So if you're in Block 12, come forward and testify. And if we don't have questions for you, I will tell you that. But every now and then we do have some questions. And we don't answer back and forth. This is time for you to testify to us and how you feel on it, not for us to engage in debate with you. Welcome to the meeting, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Donna Hazen. I live on the east side, and I was born here in 1953, so I've been here almost 62 years. And I was here before Alaska became a state. Seen a lot of changes. This one I don't like. Discrimination. Let's see. First, I'm Indian. Discrimination. I'm a half-breed. That was a big no-no back when I was small. And I was called all kinds of names. I was looked down on because I was a half-breed. I didn't go around trying to sue everybody because of that. Pardon the expression, but I just put my big girl panties on and went on. And I'm sure there's some gay people here that they're not pushing and demanding their rights, special privileges. You know, I'm a woman. I'm almost an elder. More discrimination risks. There's a lot of discrimination here and there. I think we've all been discriminated against at some time or another. You know, geez. I'm proud to say that Pastor Prevost is my pastor. You know, people hate him because he speaks the truth. People who are doing wrong don't like to hear the truth. And then you'll be opening up a whole new can of worms. I'm a rape survivor. 19 years old, raped by a stranger. If I see a man coming into a bathroom who happens to be a woman that day, you talk about unimaginable fear and terror that's going to come into my heart. I've been diagnosed with PTSD. I have my husband guarding the door, even today, when I go to a public bathroom. Fear. Talk about lawsuits. You know, and my kids, kids going to be raped, and you're going to open up the door for them to have pedophiles come in there pretending to be a woman and raping your little children, your grandchildren, because you gave them easier access to go in there while they're alone. You know, I so worry about what's happening today. Kim Davis, the gay community is threatening her. They're going to kill her, rape her family, rape her, because she is a Christian woman. You know, is that going to happen to us here in Alaska? How many lawsuits can our churches take before it's closed down? I think the LGBT community has an agenda. They don't like us because they know they're doing wrong. They're living in sin. We all live in sin.
Ma'am, thank you.
Well, we don't all live in sin. Sorry.
Thank you. Have a good night. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. My name is Donna Edmonds, E-D-M-O-N-D-S. I live in East Anchorage, and I've lived here for 39 years. We of Alaskans have always taken pride in our live and let live attitude with as little governmental control as possible. This is one reason why I believe that the proposal to add sexual orientation and gender identity to the current anti-discrimination law presents some real problems. I personally believe that it is a slippery slope once sexual practices are added to the anti-discrimination laws, for then who is qualified to distinguish protected sexual practices from non-protected practices? What is more concerning is that the current proposal allows government to determine when, where, and how religious principles we practice, which is in direct violation to the First Amendment of the Constitution. In recent years, the private sector has increasingly been stepping up to deal with the issues of sexual orientation on the job site. We see this in corporate America, state and local government agencies, healthcare, retail, and the food industry. As testified before the Assembly, there are numerous churches in Anchorage that welcome LGBT members to participate in all levels of their organization. I do not deny that people in the LGBT community face forms of discrimination. According to the re-release of the Anchorage LGBT Discrimination Survey released on July 2, 2015, the LGBT community faces discrimination comparable to the racial discrimination faced by blacks, Alaska Native American Indians, and the Pacific Islanders, thus demonstrating clearly that laws can never change people's hearts, only God can. But our culture has rejected God, and now we have no moral basis to stand upon. One result is that we are increasingly turning to government to solve all of our issues. Adding sexual orientation and gender identity will do little to change the attitudes of people towards the LGBT community. As an Alaskan, I want to be free to live and work according to my faith without fear of being punished by the government, which has created legislation that opens the door for radical groups to push for total destruction on my religious organization. Therefore, I request that if this motion is to be passed, despite the fact that the voters of Anchorage voted by 57% not to add sexual orientation to the anti-discrimination laws, that wording from 5.20090 on religious protections that will be introduced later on today be added to the final motion. Thank you for your time and your service to our community.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do you have your number? I don't. Were you in group 2? Yeah, I was in 11. Okay. Okay.
Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. My name is Crystal Dyson, D-Y-S-O-N. I live on the east side of town. I've lived in Alaska since 1979. I graduated from high school, got married, raised my family here. Oh, and the last name Dyson is no relation to Fred Dyson. Although as a former varsity volleyball coach here at Anchorage, I also believe You will destroy girls' high school sports by passing this ordinance. As a mother of 4, sorry.
Take a deep breath. You got lots of time.
Okay. As a mother of 4, no, I only have 3 minutes. 2 are girls. And let me tell you, mothers will be outraged when they find out that Sally has a penis and is showering with the girls' PE class. As a mother of 4, I also have 2 boys. And I don't put it past any teenage boy to take the dare to become someone he's not, to get into the girls' locker room, to snap some pictures for social media. And trust me, as a mother of boys, it will happen. I've dealt with lots of things. These are a few of the reasons I'm against this ordinance. I also believe every Alaskan should be free to live and work according to their faith without fear of being unjustly punished by the government. The government is here to protect all people, not take away the rights of us who believe. The church and the Christian school should be free to operate according to their religious beliefs without unjust government interference. Thank you for taking the time to listen to just a concerned mother.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else in Group 12?
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Sarah Dyson, D-Y-S-O-N, and I live in East Anchorage. I'm standing here tonight to defend freedom. Our government was formed to be freedom's greatest protector, not its greatest threat. Every Alaskan should be free to live and work according to their own faith without fear of being punished by the government. Pastors and churches have always had the freedom to believe what they like and live according to those beliefs. This ordinance is giving freedoms to the LGBT community while at the same time is stripping us of the faith-based community of their freedoms. Churches should be free to operate according to their religious beliefs without unjust government interference. A government that tells you what you must say and punishes you if you don't is frightening. That kind of power should scare us all, no matter where we stand on this issue. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for being here. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, sir. My name is Greg Schmidt, S-C-H-M-I-D-T. I live in South Anchorage. Sir, I recognize that this ordinance is likely to pass despite the fact that it was voted down by the people not long ago at all. And in light of that, I just want to offer some perspective and perhaps some suggestions as well. And to start, I want to go back to ancient Rome, where the early Christians had a practice that was considered somewhat odd at the time. They would go out to the dumps and they would collect babies who were cast aside because they weren't wanted, and they did it for a reason. They believed that life was sacred. And that created, in turn, other things, hospitals, orphanages, etc., that we enjoy now. It was done because life was considered sacred. Other things are considered sacred by those of us who are believers. Our sacred scripture tells us that marriage is between a man and a woman. When we are asked to participate in a wedding that is a ceremony that is in contravention of that, we're asked to participate in that, but we can't do it. We can't. Any more than the ancient Christians back in Rome could offer sacrifices to the emperor. And they were put in prison, and in some cases they lost their lives because of their beliefs. In our case, photographers, bakers are asked to participate in the same sort of religious ceremonies, and they can't do it either. And as a result, as you heard last night, and as you I'm sure know, they're losing their homes, their businesses, and their livelihoods simply for standing, not for preventing the ceremony from going forward, but for simply standing and refusing to participate because they can't. My point here is that by passing this ordinance, the Assembly will create a whole new set of people that will be persecuted. Maybe not by everyone in the LGBT community, but certainly by a few who are activists and who really do hate. I want to remind you that right now, and in these past months in our country, it's not the LGBT community who has been going to prison and been fined for their activities or for their sexual preferences. It is the people who, because of their faith-based objections and participating in what is, for them, a religious ceremony that is of profound importance, they're going to prison. Mayor Berkowitz, sir, you said that you wanted a city that was friendly to all. Is this the road you want to go down? I have a few suggestions respectfully. Number one, ministerial exemptions. Those are referred to employees, but they are not referred to volunteers. What about Sunday school teachers? What about Awana and youth groups? I also heard another suggestion. I heard everyone should vote.
Sir.
Would ask that you let us vote. And thank you.
Have a good night. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you. My name is Chris Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R. I've lived in Northeast Anchorage for 27 years. Tonight I want to testify because religious organizations and individuals need protection from people who have an agenda that want to misrepresent facts, which could then result in expensive and time-consuming lawsuits. I'm going to give you just one example based on a testimony from last night. I received this letter from the administrator of Anchorage Christian Schools today in response to my own inquiry as an ACS graduate. This is the letter. As administrator of Anchorage Christian Schools, I would like to correct one of the testimonies given last night at the assembly meeting that is simply factually incorrect. Desiree Allen gave her testimony about both her sister and trying to enroll her sons in ACS. I would like to correct her statement so you have a more accurate picture of what really happened. First, her sister. She was enrolled in Anchorage Christian Schools for 3 years. During junior high, ACS staff spent much time with her, helping her both academically and in counseling scenarios. During her freshman year, she lived primarily with her sister and brother-in-law, Desiree and her husband. The sister did very well academically, and her attitude was great, much of this attributed to her home environment. In August 2015, the sister entered her sophomore year at ACS. When she and her father met with Mrs. Wells, our academic dean, to go over her class schedule, there was a dramatic and noticeable change in her attitude and disposition. She was very verbal in her desire to attend a different school. Her demeanor was dark, and she expressed the fact that she no longer liked our ACS. During the first week of school, Mr. Cobaugh and Mrs. Wells met with Desiree's sister at the sister's request because she no longer wanted to attend ACS. And the reason she gave is because she no longer believed the biblical teaching of human sexuality. The meeting ended at a positive note, and both Mr. Cobaugh and Mrs. Wells assured her that we cared about her and her family. We met with the student again the second week of school for basically the same issue, her new belief that she didn't believe transgenderism was wrong. During this meeting, the sister was even more adamant about leaving ACS, basically said that she would do whatever it took to be expelled from our school. On Friday, September 4th, Desiree, the biological mom, and the student came, and they paid the remaining bill, received her transcript, and she was withdrawn from school. As they were leaving, Mrs. Wells hugged the student, told her that she loved her and cared about her family, and expressed that if she ever needed anything, she could contact Mrs. Wells. Never did the fact that Desiree and her partner were now a gay couple, or the fact that she had changed his gender, come up ever in the conversation. Nor did it impact the way the school handled her withdrawal. The second incorrect fact you heard was when Desiree said that she attempted to enroll her preschool child in one of our preschools. We have no record of her application, which we keep on file, nor do any of the people who deal with enrollment remember calling or stopping by for enrollment information. In summary, the testimony that you heard on Tuesday night from Desiree Allen was factually incorrect. The student in question was never asked to leave ACS. Her biological mother and sisters stepped in to withdraw her from school. She also never contacted ACS to enroll her son. It is for situations exactly like this that religious organizations need ample protection from people who have an agenda and want to misrepresent facts that could lead in expensive and frivolous lawsuits.
We have the document in front of us.
I also have the statement for all of you here.
Thank you.
Who would you like me to give this to?
The clerk. Thank you, sir. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you. My name is Terry McGovern. I live in Lower Hillside, McGovern. I'm the senior pastor at the Independent Baptist Church of Anchorage. I just arrived in Anchorage on the 1st of July. I've actually been in the bush in Papua New Guinea for the last 12 years doing mission work. The Lord directed us back to Anchorage, and we're certainly thrilled to be here. I am opposed to this ordinance that is being set forth. I believe it is bad for all, including those it claims to protect. The arguments in support of this ordinance is being framed in such a way that the right action looks evil and the evil action looks right. It's being framed almost in this hate versus love issue. This is not a hate versus love issue. This is a principled issue. This is a moral issue. It seems everyone assumes that all discrimination is based on hate. Of course, we know this isn't true. We make decisions every day where we use discrimination. When you decide which Walmart you're going to go to, you say, well, I don't like this one. I don't like the way that one looks or smells. laws, I'm not going there. You just discriminated. Was that based on hate? Of course not. Don't assume because a Christian school refuses to hire a homosexual that it is based on hate. It is based on a higher authority which Christians govern themselves by. Christians cannot hire the person because their lifestyle choice goes against the values and what they believe to be is right. The higher authority is this same higher authority is exactly what our nation has used to base morality on. Our founding fathers used the Word of God to determine the laws of our land. You are now trying to govern from purely a secular point of view. You are removing the authority which has been guiding our morality and our laws for the last 239 years. Let me read to you this. In 1853, a group petitioned Congress for the separation of Christian principles from government. They looked at it for 1 year, the House and Senate. This is their report. March 27th, 1854. Here was their conclusion. Had the Founding Fathers during the Revolution a suspicion of any attempt to war against Christianity, that revolution would have been strangled in its cradle. At the time of the adoption of the Constitution and its amendments, the universal sentiment was that Christianity should be encouraged, but not any one sect or denomination. 2 months later, the House Judiciary Committee added this declaration to their statement. This great, vital, and conservative element in our system, the thing which holds our system together, is the belief of our people in the pure doctrine and the divine truths of the gospel of Jesus Christ. The committee then went on to explain that they could not separate these principles of Christianity from the government because it was these principles which made us so successful. This proposal is trying to remove Christian principles from government. It is these very principles which has made us successful. If you choose to govern from purely a secular humanistic point of view, it will lead to the failure of our culture, as it always has done in history. It will lead to it is going the opposite way that led to the success of our nation. We will all suffer. Please govern from the Christian principles which have directly led to the greatness of our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Hi, how y'all?
Fine.
I'm Paul Swetzoff. I've lived in Turnagain for about 28 years, same house. I've got 3 children, raised them all here, all went to the Anchorage school system. And I'm speaking as in opposition to this ordinance. I want you to know where we come from as Christians. And I'm a person of faith. I follow Jesus. No matter what you do up here or don't do up here, that doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change who I'm required to follow. I follow God's law. If it conflicts with man's law, I follow God's law. If you look here in the New Testament in Romans 1:26-27, it says, "That is why God abandoned them to their shameful desires. Even the women turned against the natural way to have sex and instead indulged in sex with each other. And the men, instead of having normal sexual relations with women, burned with lust for each other. Men did shameful things with other men, and as a result of this sin, they suffered within themselves the penalty they deserved." I wanted to read that to you because that's where I'm coming from. I teach Sunday school. I teach at Faith Christian Community. I'm a volunteer. Having said that, my values, my Christian values that come from God also tell me not to condemn and not to judge, and I don't. As an American, I would fight for the right of the LGBT community to do whatever they want with each other because they can make a choice. Free choice is a blessing and it's also a curse. You can do whatever you want, and I'll fight for your right to do it. But I will also fight for my right to practice my faith as God tells me to. At our church, we are not, no matter what you do up here, we are not going to hire anyone who runs opposite to the Word of God, and that goes from the janitors to the secretaries to the pastors. We will not do that. Now, I don't know what you folks are going to do if you pass an ordinance which you think requires us to do it. We're not going to. What it's going to lead to is a lot of taxpayer loss because money is going to be spent on who knows how many lawsuits. What are you going to do? Close down the churches? You're going to fine them hundreds of thousands of dollars? Can you imagine the uproar in this town when that happens? It'll be an uproar, and it'll be something that I don't think I don't think any of us can imagine the experience of what would occur. All that I'm saying here is that we need, use common sense. I'm also opposed to the businesses and landlords of small apartments or duplexes and what have you if I own a duplex and I have someone and I rent to someone next door to me, and I run my business as I do my life, Christian values, which I run everything by my Christian values. What do I have to do? I have to hire a gay couple? To rent to a gay couple because you say I have to, even though you live next door to me, and it's my home, and I worked for the money and I paid for that home? It's not the same as race discrimination. Anyway, I thank you all for listening, and I pray for you all and hope that you all do the right thing. Thank you so much.
Take care. We're on to 13 now, Amanda?
We have a few more 13.
Okay.
A lagging 12. Sorry.
Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, thank you. My name for the purposes of this meeting is Jane Doe. I have a very real concern that...
Where Anchorage are you from, ma'am?
I'm sorry, I'm from East Anchorage.
Thank you.
I'm represented by Mr. Peterson, Mr. Honeman. I have a very real concern about my job security by standing up and saying what I want to say here. And so if you need to know my name, I'll tell you later. When my mother was growing up in the 30s, she was part of a blended family. Her mom died because of lack of antibiotics during surgery. Her father, when she was 4 and her sister was 2, married someone else, and they had a son. When my mother was growing up, I found out many, many years later, of course she didn't tell me this when I was a child, that her mother, who was her stepmom, again, I didn't know this at the time, would put a quarter on the table for my mom's brother and a dime for my mom and her sister to share, okay? Obviously, that wasn't fair, but that was life for my mom, and she learned to live with it. The question of fairness among siblings came up, and you're going to wonder how this relates. I'll get back there. In a popular show in the 60s with Tom and Dick, and they would make fun of each other on TV. One of them played the string bass and one of them played the guitar, and they would sing. One of them usually sang off key, and the other one would make fun of each other. I thought it was important for my children to know who these guys were because I thought it was funny. The line that they are best known for is, well, Mom liked you best. Well, who did Mom like best? That was the question that everybody wanted to know. They said, if you Google these guys and look up Mom like you best, they said, this is the question we were asked all the time. Who did Mom like you best? Okay, bringing this to our situation, we have a script. These brothers brought Mom on the show, and it was scripted that Mom was going to slap one of the brothers and kiss the other. Mom went off script and kissed the one brother that was supposed to get slapped and slapped the other. And one of them, when they were discussing this, that you can see on YouTube, says, well, what's the deal with this? Mom was supposed to kiss me and slap you. Well, someone caught her in between and said, this is what you should do. And so she went off script. My point is, you have two sides that have diverging opinions about the way things are. You don't have to get us to love each other, but you have to be fair to everybody. You don't have to stay on script. Everyone has said, okay, this is the script for this side, this is the script for that person. You can decide what the script is.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Go to the meeting, sir.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Charles Kirschbaum. I lived in Anchorage for about 30 years. I'm in the Independence Park, Patriot Park area. And I'm going to go over a few things this evening that are what I think are going to be bad consequences if you pass any version of this ordinance. So I'm going to go through a few Bible verses first. John 14:15, Jesus, and these are all first three are from Jesus. If you love me, keep my commandments. And then Matthew 19:4-6, Jesus talks about God creating them in the beginning, male and female, and marriage the union of one man with one woman as one flesh. And then he continues that what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. There's no mention of any other kind of marriage in the Bible. And then I know you guys have heard a lot about different verses that talk about the sin of homosexuality, but I'll just go over where they're at. Leviticus 18:22 talks about it, Leviticus 20:13, Romans 1:24-32, 2 Peter 2:4-22, Revelation 22:15 and 1 Corinthians 6:9 and 10. Now that one talks about people not going to heaven. It's not just homosexuals. It's people that commit adultery, murderers, liars, drunkards. So Christians aren't picking on one group of people. We'd like to see everyone possible going to heaven. You've had a lot of so-called Christian pastors that come up and they talk about the love of God. They completely ignore these verses and they ignore the wrath, anger, and fury of God. They might be representing a church, but they are not representing a Christian church. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1 says, "But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privately shall bring damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that brought them, and bring upon them swift destruction." And 2 Corinthians 4, 3-4 says, "But if our gospel is hid, it is hid to them that are lost. In them the God of this world," which would be Satan, "has blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them." And I pray that God would open your eyes, ears, hearts, minds, souls, and do what's right regarding this issue, so that your children, you, our city, our state, our country, will not suffer the wrath, anger, and fury of God as he poured forth on his nation of Israel and on Sodom and Gomorrah. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, sir. My name is, I just want to say thank you for letting me speak. My name is Naomi Maxon, M-A-X-O-N. I live on the east side. I moved up from Texas in '97. It took me years to find a great church, and I did, ABT. I've grown there and come to know the Lord. Since then, I've gained family and friends. I love going to church and listening to the Word. I have a wonderful husband, Robert. Whom I met there at ABT. God has blessed us more than we could ever know. So for us, this ordinance is not right. We oppose it. In Ephesians 6:14, God says, "Stand firm." As believers of Christ, we stand firm in our faith. It's not up to the assembly or anyone else to change that. This special rights ordinance benefits a small percentage at the expense of the majority. Jesus came to seek and save that which is lost. We don't hate LBGT. We disagree with their sin. In my daily work, I've learned to interact with people from all walks of life. I treat everyone with respect and dignity. It's part of who I am. I pray that you, the assembly, open your hearts and listen to the voice of reason and realize how foolish this ordinance is. I pray that it fails. Amen.
Thank you for your testimony, ma'am.
Thank you.
Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Daryl Nelson, Nelson, from East Anchorage, and I live in the Reflection Lake neighborhood. Thank you for allowing us as residents of Anchorage to speak on this issue. I'm coming to you today not as a pastor or an employee of a religious organization, although those are accurate descriptions of who I am. Today, I'm coming to you as a concerned parent of 3 children, ages 8, 6, and 4. As parents, my wife and I have made the decision to place our kids in a private school so that they can have certain level of protection from worldly influences. I'm not going to live ignorant to the fact that my kids will be exposed to them anyway, but I will do my best as a father to limit that exposure. The current language in the proposed ordinance, I feel, threatens the safe environment that I have chosen to place my children in. If this ordinance is passed as is, there is limited protection for the Christian school and the facilities in which they are housed. The current proposal leaves the door open for frivolous lawsuits and that will cost the organization money and man-hours that will directly take away from my children's education. As an employee of a religious organization, these types of lawsuits will affect my salary and ability to provide for my wife and 3 precious children. I stand before you today asking that you would consider strengthening the language of the ordinance to offer more religious protections to the people of faith and religious organizations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Welcome to the meeting, ma'am.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Judy Eledge, E-L-E-D-G-E. I live in South Anchorage. And I didn't come last night, but it was heavy on my heart when I heard that this was happening to come tonight. And I want you to know, as Assembly people, that every Alaskan should be free to live and work according to their faith without fear of being unjustly punished by the government. I do not understand the need for this law. It is not, this type of wording is not in our state or our federal law. Sexual orientation or gender identity is not in those laws. And so it concerns me when our city government decides to go beyond what is in our state and our federal laws. Our government was formed to be freedom's greatest protector, not its greatest threat. You're not free if your beliefs are confined to your mind. What makes America unique is our freedom to peacefully live out these beliefs. And I'm asking you that these cherished freedoms be protected. A government that tells you what you cannot say is bad enough. A government that tells you what you must say and punishes you if you don't is frightening. That kind of power should scare all of us, no matter where we stand on this issue. I have read all of the information, and I think what concerns me the most is that only 4 years ago, the citizens of this city overwhelmingly defeated this. And yet each one of you said here tonight, and I don't know how each one of you will vote, and you say that we the people don't matter. Well, we do matter. And we're not going to take this sitting down again. And if we have to go back to a proposition, we will. It just really bothers me, and we're all so tired because over and over again, elected officials don't seem to hear what we have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you. My name is Bill Light, L-E-I-G-H-T, live in East Anchorage. My family moved to Alaska in 1956. I have lived in East Anchorage for almost 43 years. I'm proud of Anchorage. My wife and I have raised 3 children here, and Anchorage is a great city. Anchorage has even won prestigious awards as a model city. One of the awards we have received numerous times here has been the All-American City Award. Criteria for being considered for this award included how the people of Anchorage treat each other and include one another. If Anchorage is such a hateful, discriminatory place, then why would we have received this award? Why are people from various cultures, countries, Samoa, Korea, Philippines, many more, all moving to Anchorage? Why do people desire to become residents? What's the attraction? If we have all this evil, discrimination, and hate being spotlighted by the homosexual community, why do people from all walks of life continue to make Anchorage their home? Those supporting this ordinance are telling us Anchorage is an evil, difficult place to live. Then we would have us believe that discrimination is rampant and needs to be cut out like a cancer. But they have offered no proof of these inaccurate allegations. I hear a lot of testimony about emotions, personal feelings, but no proofing that homosexual discrimination is of epidemic proportions. The evidence just does not support or warrant the passing of an ordinance that intrudes on people's lives to the degree this ordinance will, and is intruding on the faith-based communities. Just as LGBT community feels they need protection, so does the faith-based community. The Assembly members, we would hope you recognize the negative impact removing religious protections will have on people of faith and faith-based organizations. I also spoke to someone who's a social worker in one of our public schools here in town, and she said because of opening this thing up with the bathroom situation, all boys can go and girls and decide what they want to do. So all this is going to, one of these things is going to do is cause a bunch of infections in little girls of bladder and kidney things because they're going to hold themselves until they get home because they don't want to go in the bathroom where the guys are. This is a horrible thing. We wish, before you push the green button, that you'd provide the leadership for which you were elected to demand that the proponents, authors of this ordinance, provide evidence of homosexual discrimination in the city of Anchorage. To require less is stating that Anchorage is not a model city and is not welcoming. To require less is failing in your duties as a civic leader. Please reconsider this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, I'm Joan Blagg, B-L-A-G-G. I've been a resident of Anchorage for 40 years, and Skyla and I raised our kids, Dan and Jack, in deepest, darkest Spenard. I urge your support for the S1 version of this ordinance. Assembly members Evans and Flynn, I want to thank you for your bravery in bringing this forward again. Tyranny comes in many forms, sometimes holding a Bible. I can only ask that you do not submit to the less than veiled threats that have been put before you. Please accept the most restrictive, reasonable version of religious exemptions for this ordinance. A number of folks here have proclaimed that LGBT is a choice, and as such, that people like myself are not due equal protection. I might add that science tells us that LGBT people are indeed somewhat born this way. I have never seen evidence that religious people are, so perhaps maybe they don't believe or need to be in this ordinance at all. Just saying. I have had doctors look me in the face and say, "We don't do your kind here." I've been asked to leave restaurants. I've been told that folks will not sell me stuff. I have had difficulties getting employment, housing. I have had managers run around conference rooms for 30 minutes threatening my employment. But if you won't do it for that, if you won't vote yes for that, maybe you'll do it for Rick, a coworker of mine who never ever brought his partner to an office party because he needed his job. Maybe you'll do it for Julie. Julie's not her real name. But Julie was met by 3 of her coworkers early one morning when she got to work, and they beat the living hell out of her for being trans. She didn't report it. She needs a job. Do it for Jeff, who a long, long time ago was simply shot for being gay. And do it for Maya, who committed suicide simply because she got no support from church, family, and work. Thank you.
Thank you for the testimony. Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, my name is Susan Tao, T-O-W, and I live over in West Park. And I too have PTSD, so if you guys would watch my back while I have my back to everybody, I'd appreciate it. Good evening, and thank you, Assembly Members Evans and Flynn, for all of your hard work and dedication on this much-needed change to the non-discrimination ordinance. I've called Anchorage my home for over 22 years. I initially came to Anchorage, Alaska in 1994 while serving with the United States Air Force. I served a total of 12 active duty years here. I raised my 2 beautiful, hardworking sons, Lakota and Dylan, here, both of whom still call Anchorage home. I've been retired from the United States Air Force for the past 3 years and been offered many amazing jobs in other states. However, Anchorage, Alaska is my home, and I love our beautiful town, so I have accepted a position here in Anchorage. I intend to stay here in Anchorage, and I have that right, just as anyone else in this room does. However, everyone in this room does not have the same rights today in regards to Anchorage Anti-Discrimination Ordinance as it is currently written. Thankfully, the company that I work for today has a non-discrimination policy that includes the word sexual orientation and soon will include gender identity. So I'm not afraid of losing my job. But many of my friends, to include Diane and her wife, whom you heard from yesterday, are afraid of losing their jobs. I own a home here, so I do not have the worry of losing my housing. But many of those in this audience today do have that fear, and it is legitimate. Without the inclusion of the words sexual orientation and gender identity in the anti-discrimination ordinance, our LGBT community has nowhere to go to file the reports of discrimination that would allow us the ability to keep our housing and jobs and remain positive, hardworking members of Anchorage. This ordinance does nothing to limit the rights of churches to follow their own beliefs. Businesses in the public arena are not religious institutions. You cannot have a business in the public arena and be allowed to push your religious beliefs on the customer. That takes away the religious freedoms of the customer, who may or may not have the same beliefs. And yes, I have religious beliefs. No one should be able to openly discriminate against me, my friends, or my family because I don't read the same version of the Bible or don't attend the same church as they do. That is the same thing as telling me to sit in the back of the bus or that I cannot sit at the counter and eat because I am different than them. It is discrimination. Rapists and pedophiles are not specific to the LGBT or straight communities. Unfortunately, there are sick individuals across all spectrums of people, and yes, we as parents should be worried about sending our children into public restrooms. This ordinance will not change the law for prosecution of those sick individuals. I beseech you today to support the S1 version of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thanks for your service.
Hello, my name is Melissa Johnson, Johnsson.
Welcome to the meeting.
I live in Eagle River, thank you. I'm an intern pastor serving 2 congregations in our community. Internship is my last step in my academic program towards ordination in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. I have nothing to risk or gain by talking here. I'm straight, I'm married, and I'm a female already protected under this ordinance. But there are members of our community who are not protected, and my faith compels me to speak on their behalf. You heard testimony that life is sacred, that Christians of the ancient time used to go collect babies from trash heaps. And I believe that life is sacred, and the life is sacred extends to people of different sexual orientations as my own and different gender identities as my own. The faith tradition I practice is rooted in Jesus' ministry of inclusion for all. All people deserve equity and the dignity of the right to have a job, contribute to their community, and be housed where they want to be housed. Discrimination is antithetical to the message of love and inclusion in Christ. Ensuring that all people are acknowledged and protected to work and live and contribute is a matter of justice. And I don't believe that discrimination is going to go away with this ordinance, but these members of our community deserve to have standing. Thank you for your work on this ordinance, and thank you for listening to our testimony. I support the S1 version of the ordinance.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome to the meeting.
Good evening. My name is John Nicely. I'm on the east side of Anchorage. Been a member of Alaska 30 years. I'm also a veteran. I've listened to testimony both last night and tonight, which compelled me at least to give my piece. I spent most of my growth as an adult serving in the military, defending all people's rights, not just the military, the civilian community. And I have no hatred, dislike towards anyone. But I am against this ordinance because I feel it's going to impinge on my Christian rights. And I would fight for it fight for my Christian rights the same as I fought for this country. Because when I fought for this country, I fought to preserve these rights, not just for me, but for everyone. And when we start and taking certain rights away from people and discriminating against the religious base of this country, then everything I fought for and half my high school class died for was for naught. Because that's what this is about. This is about what we fought for. This is about what I lost brothers and sisters for. And this is what I lost my father for, was fighting for the rights of everyone in this country. Yes, I'm a Christian, and I will fight for Christianity. I hear people saying disparaging words about my pastor. Well, my pastor speaks from the Bible, and people don't like him because he deviates. He does not deviate from the Bible. He sticks to that Bible. And that's what we ought to do, stick to that Bible, because that's God's law. And when we violate God's law, then we have to answer to him in the end. And that's something we all need to think about. But I'm proud to be an ABT member, and I will never give up my religion for anyone. And I will fight to the death for not only my religious rights, but my freedom. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. I'd like to start today just by outlining essentially the two. Daniel Jose from East Anchorage.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to just kind of take a look at the two objections that I've seen whenever I've dealt with like the issue of LGBT protections and expanding public accommodation to include LGBT individuals. First, there's the religious objection. I think there's a necessary irony that we should really point out in the religious objection to the LGBT protection. It's ironic that those who would oppose this protection enjoy a workplace protection for themselves, yet they claim that LGBT individuals are seeking a privilege when they are seeking the same protection, essentially, that those religious individuals have. I think that's just an important thing to point out. Now, there's more of a principled libertarian objection to these sorts of arguments that goes sort of the way of saying that some oppose these protections because they believe a business is an extension of an individual's free expression, and therefore they should be granted the right to discriminate. Now, I find this also to be a little bit inconsistent because this objection really is only raised from the conservative community when an LGBT ordinance is proposed. This is never raised in the sense that we would want to end all of those protections for individuals in accordance with race or in accordance with religion. If you are principally consistent, you have to take a stance as a libertarian to oppose all of those protections, and not just the protections specifically to the LGBT individual. So I don't find that there's really a lot of principled consistency that I've heard from that opposition case. Now, really the question I have today doesn't have much to do from a principled standpoint, but it's actually just a textual question of the law itself. So whether you're in support of this issue, I think this is like one question that we really should consider. When I looked at the text of this bill and I saw that gender identity was defined in a certain way, what I saw was that there were two versions and now then a compromise version, and how those the two definitions had combined to create a new version of how gender identity is defined. The first gender identity definition was gender identity means a person. Gender is related to self-identity, appearance, behavior, regardless of a person's assigned sex at birth. Then Mr. Evans had the compromise with the bill, and the second definition was called gender identity means a person's gender-related self-identity as expressed in appearances, behavior, regardless of a person's assigned sex at birth. Now, these definitions may sound similar, but there's an important distinction. I think that the second definition says that the appearance of a person defines their identity, essentially. And so this quote then goes on to list medical history, record of treatment, consistent and uniform assertion, and other evidence that would need to be provided in order to assert that gender identity. The issue I maybe see with that is that, for example, some people choose to dress themselves androgynously. Some people are genderqueer, and those people might face some unfortunate consequences.
Open the meeting.
It's tough in here, isn't it? First of all, let me thank God for granting me this day for all of us to be here. I thank you. My name is Anuala Lee, Lee, and I live in East Anchorage. As you can see, I am neither white nor black. My skin color is brown. Discrimination? Yes, I can tell you about discrimination, but I'm not going to go into that. I am here to stand up for my right that is guaranteed under Article 1 of the Bill of Rights of the U.S. Constitution, and that is my freedom of religion. I look at this bill and I see this ordinance as an infringement on my right and my choice to be a Christian. What is a Christian? I was here all night last night listening to all the testimonies of religious people that claim to be Christians or profess to be Christians, and people that their choice of who have a choice of who they want to be with. Well, let me tell you my definition of a Christian. Since I didn't grow up as a Christian, being a Christian is my choice. Just as choosing to be with who you want to be or who you want to be with or choose to be your partner is a choice. You weren't born that way. And I listen to people come up here to defend their right for the choice of who they want to be with and compare their struggle to struggle of those of African Americans. That was disrespectful. You weren't tied up, you weren't put in chains, you weren't marched to the railroads, you didn't have crosses burned in your yard for being black. Being black was something you cannot change. You were born with it. It was compared to the Jewish struggle. That was not a choice. It is what they were born with. You cannot change that. They weren't marched to the trains and to where they were put to death in gas chambers. They didn't have a choice. Well, my being a Christian is a choice. And in saying that, all the Christians that stood up here, and yes, they profess to be Christians, I bring you Romans 1:22. In professing to be wise, they were made fools. I don't have any accolades of being a missionary or studying years to become a preacher, but I am a Christian, and I will defend that faith.
Your time is up. Thank you very much for your testimony. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Good evening. My name is John Shipton, Shipton, live in East Anchorage. I was brought up to believe in God and that the Bible is the Word of God. I raised my children the same way. I think this meeting more is about, not so much about equal rights as it is forcing their lifestyle on us. There's about 5% of the people are LGBT, 95% aren't. And the scripture, going back to the Old Testament in Leviticus 18:22, it tells about a man lies with a man as with a woman. It's an abomination. And then you can go to the New Testament, and it's been quoted already. Romans 1:25-28 says that it's detestable and that God will give them over to a reprobate mind along with other sins. If you pass this ordinance, you kind of have a sign in your business that says, I reserve the right to refuse service. If an intoxicated person comes into a restaurant, you can't say, I can't serve you, you're intoxicated. If he's a little loud, noisy, he can sue you. He can say, I'm an alcoholic, it's a disease, and he can sue you. You can't refuse them. And that's not right. 50% of the people voted, 57% of the people voted already once, that there's really no discrimination. And I haven't seen any, and I've lived in Alaska for about 40 years. And as thinking about the The bathrooms in the public schools, I believe you should change it. What a man or a woman is born with below the waist is the bathroom that they should use. Men shouldn't be in women's bathrooms, and girls shouldn't be in boys' bathrooms. It just isn't right. I ask that you change some of the wording in this. I ask that you allow the religious schools and the religious churches to hire religious people that believe as they believe to teach their children. And that don't be forcing us to accept a lifestyle that we don't agree with. And I thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate you being here. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you. My name is Jerry Jordan, Jordan. I live, work, and attend church at the Independent Baptist Church here in Midtown. Speaking on behalf of my family, we oppose this ordinance. We recognize that those engaging in homosexual behaviors are sinners, just as everyone else in this room, myself included. We are commanded to love our neighbor, which is everybody in this room, but we are not to condone or tolerate the sin. I have worked with homosexuals, and I have family that are homosexuals. I have always treated them with the most respect, and shame on anybody who does not. You have heard from many other clergy in this time, last night and today. I call many of them wolves in sheep's clothing. They support this ordinance. They do not understand God's word because they are clearly wrong on their acceptance of this lifestyle. It is impossible to accept sodomy, as the Bible calls it, without rejecting the Bible. The defenders of sodomy arrive at their desired position and then search for a route best to defend it by even twisting the scriptures. These words, as some of you have already heard, are used to describe the sin. Vile affections, without natural affection, receiving in themselves the recompense of their error. Men with men, for even their women did change the natural use to that which is against nature. This is a behavior. They are not born this way. Additionally, the religious exemptions are not nearly strong enough in these ordinances. The First Amendment of the Constitution grants the free exercise of religion. This does not apply only when my church gets together or when I'm there. I'm a Christian when I'm at church, at home, at work, shopping around town, all activities of my life, and in businesses that I might want to engage in. It is against the First Amendment to force a Christian to make a cake, make floral arrangements, take photos at a wedding, or however else they wish to conduct their business enterprises. There are other businesses that these folks can go to. If someone didn't want to make me a cake, I'd find some other place to go. This ordinance is just one of many steps this country has taken towards moral decay. We have elected officials and judges that twist the words of the Constitution to their will to appease 3 to 5% of the population. We are seeing our country go from a constitutional republic towards tyranny, as warned by Thomas Jefferson. He referred to the act of elected officials infringing upon our inalienable God-given rights as elected despotism. I'm not surprised that my devotional this very morning took me to Genesis chapter 19, dealing with Lot vexing his righteous soul by dwelling in Sodom. He became comfortable with the very sin we're talking about here today. I will not stop viewing sin as a destructive evil, because it will not be long before we find sin has become quite comfortable for us. Sodom was destroyed because of their sin, and I don't want those same judgments passed down to us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to the meeting.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Schessler, SCHOESSLER. I'm a lifelong Alaskan from Soldotna, and I live in East Anchorage. Every one of us is worthy of basic dignity, respect, and protection. Employees should be judged by their work performance, not by their gender they identify with or who they love. People should not be evicted from their homes or treated less than anyone else for something they cannot change. One is not being persecuted when prevented from persecuting others. The problems some express are based in fear. However, when closely examined, those fears have little basis in reality or are unsuited for this day and age. Some have falsely claimed that passing this ordinance creates an opportunity for predators. But pedophilia is an issue of adults preying on children and is separate from gender identity or sexual orientation. If the concern is protecting children, LGBT youth are 4 to 5 times more likely to attempt suicide. For transgender individuals, that number is a staggering 9 times more. People should not have to surrender their lives out of fear for being who they are. Today, the LGBT community members face higher rates of violence and harassment than the general population. Civil rights are about inclusion and unity, not exclusion and division. This is the time to be on the right side of history. Please ensure the safety, livelihood, and well-being of all those in our community passing these ordinances. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and thank you, everyone who showed up to participate in our democracy today.
Thanks for testifying. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Trevor Storrs from South Anchorage. Just want to say thank you to Mr. Evans and Mr. Flynn for taking the charge and bringing this before our community. Even though some people feel there's a divide, I think this is an amazing conversation, and it's conversations that actually build a community. Tonight and last night, we hear a lot of fear on both sides, and who better to talk about fear but the LGBT community. And how do we overcome that fear? We can look at history. History tells us a lot, and if we use it to guide us, it will give us the prediction of the future. So if we think about the discrimination and all those before us, before today, much of what has been said tonight and last night in previous discussions, we can say to race discussions, whether we're talking the black community, the Hispanic community, the brown community, whatever, or women, or people with disabilities and religion, the same arguments have been used. But when we look at after that fact, we can see that history shows that religion did not get affected. The churches were not closed down. They were not sued, and they continued, and that First Amendment still existed. If we look at history, when women started wearing pants versus dresses, they didn't take over boys' sports. They did get a little more attention, though. If we look at history with people with disabilities, they were told they just can't, and they weren't allowed to join in. But when they were treated equal, they started getting employment, being a part of the community. History shows progress within that community. If we look at history, the fear of the bathrooms, if some man in a full beard walks in a dress, I encourage all people to leave. No different than if a woman walks into the men's bathroom waving a knife, I'm going to leave. But what history tells us, especially in this state, it's not those that we need to be in fear of. It's the people that we put on pedestals. As one person said, the wolf and sheep dressing. Here in Alaska, we have a history of child abuse, and we know who those individuals were. They were put on pedestals and entered into our villages. They were leaders of troops. And then we also, as a nation, we had a great person on a pedestal, Jared. History tells us a lot. I encourage us to use that as a guide and allow fear not to control us, but to really open up the discussion and truly become a community and be what we want to be, which is a welcoming community. And I thank you all for this opportunity, for this discussion, and I wish you all the best, and please support this and support all members of our community. Have a great night.
Thank you, Trevor. Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, thank you. My name is Hester Sanders, S-A-N-D-E-R-S, and I'm from the Sand Lake area. I want to say that I oppose this amendment because I have 3 children, and I also want to protect my children as much as anyone out there with kids. But listening to testimonies last night till 11 o'clock, it really scared me as to transgenders that came up here and said they don't even know which bathroom to use. I don't want my son and daughter to be afraid to use the bathroom because who might walk in. And I love sports, but if a guy who says he's a girl plays too rough on the court against my daughter, I will become unglued, because boys should never, ever hit or push a girl. I was having this talk with my children, and for example, my daughter's bunny here, it's always going to be a bunny. I don't care how much my 7-year-old wants to dress it up and make it look like a baby doll. Okay, it's always going to be a bunny. I don't care if she took it to a doctor and asked it to give it shorter ears, a longer tail. Give it medicine so it can learn how to bark. The insides will always still be a bunny. I'm a school teacher, and I choose to send my kids to a Christian school that will teach my children the values that my husband and I want them to have as Christians. I don't want my son's 6th grade teacher to walk into a class with a miniskirt and he thinks that's okay. I choose to send my children to a Christian school with the same beliefs that I have. So I'm asking that you not take away my religious freedom and that this law would not allow transgenders or gays to teach or work at my children's private school that I and others pay for, or even choose to walk into my church and teach their Sunday school class. It goes against my beliefs, and if no other place to be allowed to stand up for the Bible, we should not live in fear in our own church. I don't take my children to any LGBT bar and expect nobody to drink. I don't expect people not to make out with their partner. But if I go in there, I'm not going to file discrimination against them because it offends me. So if I don't walk into their place and demand special rights, then I don't expect them to walk into my church or my private school and demand special rights as well. I teach my children to respect bottom line. If I see a gay and lesbian person, I respect them. It doesn't mean I agree with them, but I do respect them. But then where can I send my kids? To a private school or to a church and have the religious freedom? We've already voted on this. My kids are the next generation. We're teaching them that our vote doesn't matter if we've already voted on this and then you guys take this up again. So please protect mine and my children's religious freedom. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Levine, and I'm from East Anchorage. First of all, I'd like to state that I am a Christian. I say grace before I eat meals, and I pray every night before I go to bed, which is why I do agree that there should be some religious freedom for this. But, and this is a big but, a friend who called me today and wanted me to, and has asked to remain anonymous, asked me to relate her story to her story. She is lesbian, and she went to West High just like I did. She's worked summers. And then one night, I get a call from her. She's sobbing, and she says she just got brutally assaulted by 3 men who were screaming, "We don't want a lesbian near us." I had to take her to the hospital, to the emergency room, where she was treated for 6 broken ribs, a broken leg, a broken jaw, and a broken nose. She moved to Texas because she had family down there, and she considered it safer than she considered Alaska. And I'm not saying Alaska is a terrible place filled with discrimination, because I've lived here my entire life, and I love it, and I'd like to come back here after I'm done with college. But this law needs to be passed so that people realize the LGBT community will be protected and has the same rights as everybody else. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. My name is Diane Dickey. I've been here 18 years, and I'm from the east side of Anchorage. And I have a couple thoughts that I want you to think about while you're proposing this. And as I understand it, this ordinance goes through, if it goes through without full religious exemption, then Christian churches, schools, and organizations would have to hire LBGT people as long as they weren't teaching religion. And I wonder, why would they want to work at a place that they know disapproves of their lifestyle? There are other places that they could go to seek employment. So what would be the point of them applying for a job at this particular place? And my thought is it would either be, or it could either be, to provide bad customer service, therefore sabotaging the business and ruining its reputation for the community, or by not doing the job according to the standards expected, and then when let go, to claim that they were dismissed because they were gay. Therefore, the place should be sued because it's either sued or have to pay a fine, whatever the consequences would be. And I also would like to remind you that this is America, and I can't imagine that we would have to choose between obeying the law or following our biblical beliefs. Some of us choose to follow God's authority, not man's majority. And I thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. So, Amanda, where are we at? How many left on 15?
We're on 14.
14, sorry. How many more? Okay, so we're going to go to 15. We want to take a break and let them sign. I want them to sign up, so let's take about a 10-minute break because we're going to sign more people up. For those that haven't testified yet that want to, see Amanda over there and she'll sign you up. Lady with the hand raised. Take your seats, please. We're going to get started. We've got 6 in chambers. Block 15. Come forward. State your name, spell your last name. Tell us what part of Anchorage you live in. You've got 3 minutes, sir.
My name is Mike Masong, M-A-S-S-O-N-G, from Chugiak. We are witnessing an interesting turn in our country. We recently observed law discarded by the majority of state legislators, rejected by the majority of Americans, unable to pass the Congress of these United States, and not found within a single federal statute, yet put in place by a court just a couple of months ago, even though the Constitution reserves such lawmaking powers to the legislative branch alone. Sailing the wind of that decision, today we debate ordinance tweaking the past, which was just voted down by the people a few years ago, and to which I still oppose. Those of us opposed to special rights awarded on behaviors are labeled intolerant, yet when did the definition of tolerance change to unconditional acceptance? People declare that they want the government out of the bedroom, yet now they crave protections for what happens in it. I ask, do you believe that a bisexual is deserving of special protections because of their choice to sleep with either sex? What about the decent employee who decides that they are transgender? And what if their quality of work thereafter degrades, losing customer service to that owner, or losing customers to that owner? Would the words of this proposal not place that employer directly in the crosshairs of a lawsuit, even though he may be fully justified in firing that employee? As mentioned by others, this opens Pandora's box, and we need to only look in the lower 48 for more examples. Regarding the free exercise thereof of the people's religion, this proposal's show of good faith to protect freedom within the confines of church walls falls short of the intent of our Bill of Rights. Rights intended for the people, wherever they are, not just in churches. This free exercise pertains to each individual, and yes, parents should have the choice of what their children, how their children are raised and what they're exposed to. Thomas Jefferson has often been quoted in this chamber on his separation of church and state, while ignoring the fact that he wasn't even in America at the time the Bill of Rights was written, and that the will and that wall protects religion just as much as it does the state. Our forefathers signed their names declaring that we are created equal, not that we are equal. Both being equal is a fantasy falsely built upon the premise of the 14th Amendment to not deny any person the equal protection of laws, not special protections for behaviors of a minority at the expense of a majority. Changes in civil society of this magnitude should not be left in the hands of a select few, whether they are local legislators or 5 supreme attorneys. They should be determined by the people, as it was on this subject 3 years ago. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. You're next.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Emily Eliason, E-L-I-A-S-E-N, and I am from the Arctic Boulevard region. I just moved here, so. And it's actually weird moving across the country and learning I no longer had some rights. My coworker can wear a cross, but I could lose my job if I look a little too gay. I'm bisexual, and it's not really my fault that I get turned on the same way by vaginas as I do by penises. Sorry if that's a little bit too explicit. But 100 years ago, women could not vote or own property. 60 years ago, African Americans were considered inferior, not just in the communities in which they tried to live, but legally too. There was no protection to keep them from being mistreated. In that same time period, beating your wife was acceptable and encouraged. 30 years ago, interracial couples could legally be denied housing because they were considered immoral. Once again, we are arguing about whether or not a group of our same species should be allowed basic human rights. The rights to shelter, access to a source of income, and entry into public spaces, along with the right to feel safe and secure in that if you are doing your job right and not being a bad neighbor and not breaking any laws, you can stay. This is not a fight against religious freedom. The people who are arguing this do not understand what the Constitution protects or what this law means. Not only has no one from any other religion come here to spout hate speech, but pastors who are chosen by God to spread the word of God have stated that this ordinance will not affect religious freedom. To be honest, most of us don't want to work at most of these people's churches anyway. All arguments against this have been saying the same thing. It's not fair that if you pass this, I can no longer treat people as inferior to me, and that is discrimination. No one is saying that you can't glare at me the entire time I'm in the store, or that you can't tell me that you'll be praying for me every day at work. All they're telling me is that, or all this law is trying to say is that you cannot actively go out of your way to make me jobless, homeless, and unable to give my money to small businesses. Also, might I remind you that there has never been a single documented case of someone pretending to be trans to sneak into bathrooms. In fact, the only people who have had documented harassment in bathrooms have been the trans individuals. Also, trans panic is still considered a legal way to get out of being accused for murder. If you murder a trans person, you can say you got scared because you didn't understand what they were, and you can walk away scot-free. How is that asking for special privilege? If you're going to allow discrimination based on sexual orientation, this means straight people can be denied entry into spaces too. Also, religious exemptions, if done properly, would require also excluding those who are divorced, unwed, engaged in any sexual activity besides missionary. I mean, has anyone in this room done anal or oral? The Bible explicitly condones slavery, secluding women on their periods, stoning adulterers. If we use it to govern our country, we will have taken away hundreds of years of progress that is making us more equally and fairly treated. Many in this country are actively fighting against Sharia law. What makes this any different?
Ma'am, thank you very much.
We're not a theocracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Look at the meeting, sir.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jim Minuri. I was born and raised here. I live in Assemblymember Evans district, and this is not a personal attack on him. It's just a little bit of clarity for people. We sent out a survey. I represented a group called Alaska Family Action. We asked two people running for office, Evans and Trombley, Adam Trombley, one question. Here's the question. This is prior to their election. As an Anchorage Assembly member, would you support or oppose adding sexual orientation and transgender identity to the municipal code section regarding non-discrimination? He signed this on, where's the date? March 23rd, 2014. Bill Evans' signature is right here that says he would oppose it. He didn't make a phone call to the folks that actually endorsed him for this race based on one question, and that was pretty offensive, not just to me, but to a lot of people that voted for Mr. Evans. So some clarity in terms of what we think of maybe as integrity, because what's happening right now is that we had 58% of the vote, despite being outspent 4-1. We were able to convince people on both sides that we are a very tolerant city. We asked Mr. Evans for at least the courtesy of a phone call, and that didn't happen. One of the things that he quoted as saying in the newspaper that I read, or the article, or the television piece, was, you know, it's really not a matter about whether there's discrimination or not. It's just we're making a stand. I actually talked to Patrick Flynn about that as well when we sat down at the park bench downtown before the ordinance was introduced here, and we both kind of agreed. We grew up here, right? And we said there's really not a lot of discrimination going on. The bottom line is this has passed in Washington State. Here's a fact that each of you should try to remember. For 8 years now, the sexual orientation, gender identity law has been in place in Washington State for 8 years. There's been 76 claims, all having to do with sexual orientation, gender identity. And you can imagine that the Washington Equal Rights Commission is not some conservative religious right bastion. Guess how many of those were dismissed as frivolous? You're right, 76. So in other words, the same thing happened in Ohio. There's 17 cities in Ohio, 4 cities in Arizona. Where these are introduced, what's happening is people are standing up and saying they don't feel comfortable in a certain setting. I remember last time there was testimony going on, and Allison Mendel, as you all know, a lesbian attorney who's been involved in this issue for a very long time, she got to give her presentation. I thought, man, she's going to hit it out of the park. She's going to show the kind of discrimination that will make each of your jaws drop. You know what she said? Do any of you remember what she said? She said, if I put a photo of my partner on the desk, I don't want people to feel uncomfortable, and I don't want to feel uncomfortable. And I thought, wow, Allison, is that all you have? Because we don't pass laws to make people feel comfortable, right? As an American and as an Alaskan, as a resident of Anchorage for 50 years, I have the right to be uncomfortable.
Jim, your time
Thank you
is
very
up,
much.
sir.
Yep.
Thank you. Open the meeting. Which one of the two of you?
Hello, my name is Rodney Powell. I live in Bear Valley, and I'm very thankful for Mr. Evans and very surprised that he did this. The Old Testament says that anyone who works on the Sabbath should be put to death. Anyone that takes the Lord's name in vain should be put to death. If your children disgrace you, they should be put to death, and many other nasty things. Do these religious people believe this? I don't think so. But they also say if a man lies down with a man, they should be put to death. Why do they single this out and believe in it and not the others? They may not believe in putting them to death, but they do believe in making their life miserable through bigotry and homophobia. Religious people are looking for dignity for their religious beliefs. That's the same dignity the LGBTQIA people are looking for when they come to look for jobs, marriage, or a place to live, or anything else that they might need to live. What did Jesus say about LGBTQIA people? Absolutely nothing. But he did say that divorce and marrying and remarrying is adultery. Are they picking and choosing what they want to believe? Do they ask a Muslim or a Hindu or a Jew or a witch or a nudist or a murderer or anyone else about their beliefs or practices before they do business with them? No, they just do business with them. It doesn't mean they condone it. So why do they single out the LGBT people? If you want to do business of any kind in this country, you must treat everyone equal, or you need to get out of business or go to jail, as was just proven recently. We're all looking for the same dignity. We all wish to achieve enlightenment of the soul and well-being of mankind. This can be achieved easier through mutual cooperation and not some kind of jihad, crusade, or holocaust. Perhaps the best way is to practice what most religions teach. Be kind to your fellow man. Don't be a pawn to zealots. Equality is dignity. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Welcome to the meeting.
My name is Brad Keene. I come from the west side of Anchorage, and I've been up here since '83. The Air Force brought me up. I retired from the Air Force. So far, we've heard from people from both sides of the issue. We've heard from business owners and employees. We've heard from landlords and renters and homeowners. We also have heard from ministers in favor of and opposed to this proposition. I am a Christian. I do oppose it. But I have worked beside friends and I should say I've worked with and have friends that are of the homosexual community. We can enjoy our time together, being around each other, but if they ask me what my opinion of their lifestyle is, I have to tell them what it says in the Bible. It says it's an abomination. I also am told in the Bible to love the sinner and not the sin. This goes for all sins, not just one. I would like to find out what the pastors that came up. I'd like to find the translation that they are reading for their Bible, because apparently it does not match with mine as far as their stand. In 2009. The public voted this down. I think it was a 57% vote that we came up with. How many times are we going to have to vote on this again? Is it going to be a situation that we vote until we finally pass it, and then there's no return? We won't be able to come back and question that. It seems as though the public has already spoken. We shouldn't have to continue to do this every few years. And also, as the Assembly, I question whether or not the Assembly should be the ones that are voting on it. If it is going to be brought to the Assembly, it should be transferred on so it becomes part of the vote of the community. From the opinions given by the other people and of both the groups, we've heard of situations where people have been injured. They have had people beat them up. I don't think that's the Christian that you're going to be finding going to church. As you notice, I wear a black vest. I am a biker. I do know that when I ride my motorcycle, I ride with people that I want to. I don't hang out with the ones that I don't feel comfortable with. This community has a very broad spectrum of people that accept the homosexuals in it. And I have to ask myself, if I were a homosexual, would I want to work for somebody or deal with somebody that has a problem with their lifestyle? I don't have a problem with the lifestyle other than the fact that God says that it is deviant.
Thank you, sir, for your
Thank
testimony.
you.
Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Hi, my name's William Cox. Spelling the last name is C-O-X, and I'm not the one your daughter ran into, Mr. Traney. I live in East Anchorage. I live in East Anchorage. Paul and Pete Peterson. I'm against this ordinance. I don't think we should give special rights to anyone, but I don't think we need to discriminate against anyone. Currently, we have laws that should be enforced. If, as the gentleman said earlier, someone was injured and stuff, was there anyone prosecuted on that? And I'm saying, why make more laws? I was an Anchorage police officer. I'm retired. I was a detective at the police department. I was in a statewide child sexual assault unit that was formed by Glenn Godfrey and Brian Porter. I was commissioned state trooper in Anchorage Police. I handled over 200 cases statewide, handling not one time did anyone say I was discriminated against because of my sexual orientation. I had not one. But on the other hand, I did not run into any cases where that a victim was sexually abused by a homosexual or lesbian. I think if you do this, you're going to be opening up a Pandora's box. There's going to be lawsuits galore, and then the people that are self-proclaimed, as Mr. Dyson said the other night, how do you know what they're going to be? Now you say, well, people are not going to come forth and say, I'm a homosexual, they was discriminated. People do what they can. They break into homes, they rob, they steal, murder to get something, and I believe that's what's going to happen. I could say, well, I'm an African American, but it's obviously I'm not. Those are the people that have been discriminated throughout history, American history. I don't think we need to make any more laws. This assembly made a law that all youths must wear a helmet, bike helmet. How many tickets have been issued? According to Mr. Honeman at the last council meeting, 0. I think this, if you're going to do anything on this, put it before a public vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to the meeting.
Members of the Assembly, my name is Lynette Nickens. Last name is Nickens. I live in South Anchorage, and I own property in Eagle River. So both ends are covered. I wanted to testify tonight in support of the S1 version of this ordinance. There's been a lot of talk about how much discrimination there is and there is not. I'll tell you that I know discrimination. I'm Samoan. I felt discrimination growing up. I ended up in a position where I worked in a line of work, heavy equipment operator. I experienced discrimination as a female in a male-dominated industry. Later in life, I came out as a lesbian person, and I can say that, to my knowledge, I have not felt discrimination in that respect, but I have had the opportunity to hear about others who have experienced discrimination, and I've witnessed discrimination of coworkers based on their sexual orientation. And I wanted to say that in response to the comment that we don't pass laws to make people feel comfortable, I think it's important that we pass laws that make all people feel equal and that they are accepted and respected in our community. There's a question about why do we have to look at this again? We've already had a vote. In the interim, the Supreme Court has spoken and made it clear that same-sex marriage is to be accepted. The country is still trying to work on putting that into place. But as you've heard in testimony yesterday, there's no protection if you can get married. I'm single. Yes, my sexual orientation has been announced here to the world. I'm single, but it's not about a behavior, it's about an orientation. And what I would say to you is that there is no, I don't believe that there is anyone here that is attempting to force Christians to accept this lifestyle. I will also tell you that I attend a church. You heard from my pastor last night. Our church preaches the gospel of God's love and acceptance. What you've heard here throughout most of the testimony is, don't make us accept these people. Don't make us do this. And that should be reason enough for you to understand that there are people that need protection. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Priest, and I'm from Southside. My last name is spelled P-R-E-I-S-S. And I'm just going to read from my paper so I don't lose my train of thought.
It's your time.
First, I'd like to say that I'm a Christian who loves God and will sacrifice my life to preserve His truth. Therefore, I cannot support this proposal to add sexual orientation to the anti-discrimination law, as it goes against the Word of God and threatens our religious freedoms. On that note, I would like to thank the LGBT community, not for fighting for your lifestyle, but for awakening a slumbering church. One that with coming persecution will now have to make a choice to stand with God or against God. It's a wake-up call for every believer and non-believer alike. A call to take a stand for truth and to get right with God, because His church will prevail more than ever in these coming days. But never forget that God is humble and gentle at heart. He is very merciful and so forgiving. So thank you for allowing God to use you as a great and mighty way to prepare and preserve His church. If you pass this ordinance without religious protection, a Japanese admiral, Yokomoto, after they bombed Pearl Harbor, said, "You have awakened a sleeping giant." Please don't pass this law. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Archana Mishra, M-I-S-H-R-A, and I live in the south side of Anchorage. I'm speaking in favor of the ordinance that's here today, the S version of it. First of all, thank you so much for all of you to show your leadership. I'm speaking as a mother. I'm speaking as an advocate to make Anchorage the #1 city in America to live, work, and play. And I'm speaking as a person who loves Anchorage because of how welcoming it has been to all of us, me and my family. When I came to Anchorage, I met with a lot of people from all walks of life. In fact, it pleasantly surprised me about how diverse this city is, how international, how well-read, and how connected this place is. I have lived in many cities across the world, and I find Anchorage that special place that I would love to be here as long as I'm allowed to be here. When I told my daughter that I'm going to the assembly to speak in front of you about this subject, she looked at me with surprise, and she said, "Why do you have to speak about this?" And I said, because there is this non-discrimination ordinance in front of us, and it's important that all of us speak our mind. And she again asked me the question. She said, "But why would you be discriminating anyway?" Our children have this very innocent question that I failed to answer. I cannot say that because there are a lot of us who still think that if we are all equal, somehow it's going to affect me badly. I do not have any other way to make my kids understand that equality somehow is still being seen as not the right thing to do. Going back to my position as the advocate for this city, to make this city the best in America to live, work, and play, I would say one thing. Our children today and our workforce tomorrow is looking for a place that is open to diversity and welcoming, as simple as that. They are making those choices to go to a place where they all live in harmony. They all live without fear, and I'm talking on behalf of the religious community as well as the community that identifies itself as LGBT. And I don't see them as in exclusion with each other as far as living with equality goes. We are all equal, and we all deserve the right to equality. In the ordinance, I am a lawyer by profession as well. I never saw anything that has been special interest, that has been special rights. All we are seeking is equality for each one of us, regardless of who we are, who we love, where we come from. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. Ken Fuller, FULLER, grew up on the west side, live on the east side now. Been in town for 60 plus years. Proud to say that over all my years, I've only seen very little discrimination in this town, and that was my best recollection only against our Native brothers. And I think that that was unjust, but that's history. Nobody's here to try and discriminate against anybody, but when you're violating our fundamental rights from the Constitution and creating a second-class group that now, I heard the term, you need to take homosexuality off the sin list. Well, guess what? We didn't put it on the sin list. So we can't take it off. All we can do is follow our Creator. Anyhow, it occurred to me that the situation where these people find themselves, they don't reproduce, they can only recruit. And they can only recruit from about 10 years old to 20. And historically, there's been a term called grooming that has been used. And it's in the past has been a violation. What you're doing is you're being manipulated into approving this manipulation, this grooming, all the way from kindergarten all through the school system, and even the public is to say that's an okay lifestyle. It's elevated to equal protection. When you're an adult, we don't care. You're living your own life. But when your children are being groomed all the way from the school age all the way up, not if, but when they get violated, I don't know. It seems to me in a public vote, you have protection. But right now, you're individually, the ones who are going to vote to pass this, are putting yourselves in a direct line from an attorney to liability issues. So anyway, I would strongly encourage you not to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you. I'm Jesse Walden from the east side. I've grown up, first off, I'm a Christian, and I've grown up my whole life. My dad's best friend was a gay man, so I knew him. I went to pretty much every gay pride picnic in Alaska since 1989, since I got up here. I'm straight. You know, that didn't affect me that I went to those. Some of the stuff that was going on, I didn't participate in. I just watched. Anyhow, my friends and family that are gay, transgender, bisexual, you know. My twin brother, my identical mirror twin, he's my other half, has just come out as a woman. We're turning 34 on the 24th. He just came out as a woman. He prefers to be called her, and her name is Emma. John, my twin brother John, is a mechanic. Okay, I go to the shop, I work with him, we put in motors, all this stuff. Now it's Emma. Would I go to the shop and work with Emma? Yes, I would. And I run landscaping businesses. He's worked for me landscaping. Would I call her and offer her a job? Yes, I would. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable because he's my identical twin brother. That's my problem, because I am a Christian. But my Christian father just said to me today, ask yourself, if you've got 3 guys that have all the same qualities and skills for a job position, you have one job position. You have a Muslim, a Christian, or it's transgender applying for the job. Who are you going to hire? My Christian father says that he's going to hire the Christian. And I told him that is, you know, that's discrimination right there, because the one is based on race and the other is just based on, like, not even the sexual preference, it's just the transgender, you know, that inside he's a woman. Emma is a woman. I have a traumatic brain injury, okay? So I'm fully capable of doing the job that I did. I run $10 million projects for the state. Everything you drive around is probably stuff that I've installed. So I would hire Emma on my job site any day, because Emma would work just like the man and do her job. Okay? Peace, love, unity, and respect. Honestly, it's not my opinion to be discriminating somebody else. What they're wearing, who they're dating, it's not my business. So I think that we should pass this law. And when Emma comes back from Hawaii, she will know I am her voice.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to the meeting.
So my name's Seth Weaver, and I normally don't like speaking in front of a bunch of people, but...
What part of town are you from?
What's that?
Okay.
I didn't hear what you said. But I'd like to express my support for this ordinance, absent one consideration. I think that all people should have rights and all people should be equal, and all people are equal, in my opinion. But I do have a small exception to this ordinance, and that's regarding the bathrooms and locker rooms. I have a series of questions here. I'll call them rhetorical questions, but I'd like to list them off. First, I had the right to privacy. Does a man or woman have a constitutional right and common law right to his or her own privacy, and for a man or woman not to be seen in the locker room of the opposite sex? For children, it is acceptable for a child to be exposed to the genitalia of another sex while in a locker room. Sexual discrimination. Is it discrimination to segregate peoples based on anatomic definitions? Sexual preference. Would segregation based on this said principle be an unverifiable standard? And gender. Should gender be defined by an individual or by society? So those were all just questions I had, and I kind of struggled with the notion that a person of a different anatomic sex would be in the bathroom or locker room of the opposite anatomic sex. So I just did some research, and I looked at a United States Court of Appeals 8th Circuit, and it said here that this one individual said that she should be protected because she was psychologically female. The court came back and said, although the court is aware of the plaintiff's personal dilemma, the court does not believe that Congress intended by its laws prohibiting sex discrimination to require the courts to ignore anatomic classification and determine a person's sex according to the psychological makeup of the individual. It says, it is, however, generally recognized that the major thrust of the quote-unquote sex amendment of Title II amendment was towards providing equal opportunities for women. So I would encourage the Assembly members to adopt language that would clarify the acceptance of persons in gender-segregated bathrooms and locker rooms. So I would support the following language. In Section B, I would say that, number one, you should maintain and enforce gender-segregated restrooms or dressing rooms and require persons to use facilities appropriate to their gender presentation, and nothing in this chapter shall be deemed to require the provision of special facilities to accommodate any persons based upon sexual orientation or gender identity. Number two, maintain and enforce...
So your time is up. If you'll send a copy of that to our clerk, she'll make distribution to all Assembly members.
Oh, I didn't know that my time was up so quick.
Yeah, sir, I appreciate it.
Who do I give it to? Sure.
Department clerk. And she'll make distribution to everybody. Okay?
Can I just finish my sentence or not?
No, sir.
Okay. That's
We're
okay.
strict on the time, sir. I'm sorry.
I'm here for support.
That's fine. That's good support.
Yes.
Welcome to the meeting. We'll need your name, spell your last name, and tell us what part of town you live in.
My name is Faith Sanders, Sanders. I am 10 years old from Sand Lake. This is my Sunday school teacher. I will stand up for God. Please do not take away my religious freedom. I go to a private school, and I am loved by my teachers and parents. I play basketball, and it won't be fair if I have to play against a guy that dresses like a woman. It scared me today when I saw a boy dressed like a lady that went up to speak. My mom was also scared, so she takes us to the bathroom to watch out for us. Thank you for listening for what I have to say. Thank you for listening, and please protect my school and church.
Thank you for testifying. Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, thank you. I am Samantha Lee, Lee, and I live on the east side. I am currently a student. I am also 15 years old, and from the ages 6 to 12, I have been sexually harassed. Although my sexual harasser was not LGB or T, I feel that if you were to pass this ordinance, I will, A, not be safe at my school to use the bathroom for that one. I feel like if you were to pass this ordinance, you would give an excuse for those who are rapists or sexual harassers to dress up as a woman and just go to a girl's room and harass them how they would like to. And I also feel that my right as a young minor girl would be lost. And are you going to just as hard defend my rights to be safe? Thank you.
Thank you for testifying. Welcome to the meeting.
Alrighty. Sorry, it's been a while.
Take a deep breath.
I'm Leanne Gonzalez, Gonzales. I'm from East Anchorage. And I would like to remind those who continue to cite the 2012 election, the results that our laws and government are and were designed to be fluid. We're supposed to change them. We're supposed to be able to adapt them. Our forefathers, funny thing to mention, they wanted us to flourish and to change laws, to adapt to the society that we have, to change every 20 years or so is what they wanted. Our laws have been updated and changed in order to protect all Americans in their pursuit of happiness, and I am proud of that. I am proud that we offer legal protections to almost all of us. In 2012, when Prop 5 made it to the ballot, I was too young to vote. Everybody else got to vote. Me and the rest of the people my age, we couldn't vote. I was then, and I am still now, in support of adding non-discrimination or adding sexual orientation and gender identity to this non-discrimination ordinance. It's the right thing to do. So many of us, again, we couldn't vote then, and we felt that our voices were not heard. So again, you did vote. We know that you voted. We know how the election went. We don't need to know that again. But we want to change that. We want to make sure that we can give something better to my children and to my children's children and everybody in this room so we can provide a better and safer Anchorage for everyone who wants to live here, everyone, we can keep them here in Anchorage, Alaska, and keep it great. I just want to adapt to the times, everybody. We're trying hard. My generation is trying hard. We'd like your help. We'd like your generation's help, Mr. Trainee. So I'd like to thank you, Mr. Evans and Mr. Flynn, for putting this forward, and I urge you to please support version S1. It's just the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. My name is Jerry Brock. I live on the east side of town. Last name is B-R-O-C-K. I would like to think that this is your desire to do what is best for our city. I realize that that's not always easy, so my prayers are with you all. I am against this ordinance. I fear for our religious freedoms. I go to a church that loves and cares for all people, regardless of race or sexual preference. We do believe that homosexuality is a sin. However, we do not hate these people, nor does our pastor preach hate. In fact, he preaches love towards them all. But we cannot condone the sin. So when we are asked to be a part of an event that goes against our religious beliefs, we must make a choice. Do we bow to the laws of men in fear of what might happen, Or do we stand by our moral and religious beliefs in which we must answer to a higher power, not to mention living with our own conscience? I must stand by my religious convictions. I choose to stand by my religious convictions, not because I hate anyone, but because it is my duty as a Christian. I have relatives and friends that are in the homosexual community, and I dearly love them all. However, I love my God too, and I have a duty as a Christian to live for him. As a mother and an aunt, I do fear for our children if this ordinance is passed. I have been in a public restroom when a man came in dressed like a woman. There was a mother in there with her 2 young daughters. For lack of time, I won't tell you the details of what happened, but what I will tell you this. The man left the ladies' room, and as he did, the ladies' room erupted in applause from both inside and outside the stalls. Mothers are not going to support or accept a man in the restroom or locker room with their daughters. This ordinance will allow any man to dress up like a woman and prey on our children. I know that is not what this ordinance is intending. Unfortunately, there will be people who will abuse it. There will be lawsuits, and I fear more crime and discrimination should this ordinance pass as it is written. I ask that you take the time to rewrite this ordinance to include the safety of our religious freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome, sir.
My name is Stan Shields, S-H-I-E-L-D-S, and I live in Eagle Rivers, and I'm bald, so I hope I'm still accepted here. I want to say first that I'm a Christian. I believe this is an infringement on my freedom of religion rights, so I'm not going to go any further with that. But as some comments have come up from those I assume were speaking in favor of, I want to tell just a brief story. I went through a divorce 12, 13 years ago. During that time, my wife had done some things which I did not agree with, which caused some physical difficulty with me. When I went to seek help, because she was blaming everything on me, I went to 6 different identities. Police department, I can't remember them all right now, but there were 6 different people, and amongst those 6 entities that were to give support, they all told me that me as a white, bald-headed guy, they could not give any help. If I were gay, if I were drug addicted, if I were alcohol addicted, if I were handicapped, which I am, but I don't look like it, if I were a couple of other items, if I were a woman or if I was a certain minority, there was places they could help. Now this was 12, 13 years ago, and they included that if I was a gay, there was help for me. A couple of years speed forward, and one of my daughters was sexually assaulted at one of our high schools. Again, because I was white male, they wouldn't listen to me. I filed. My daughter was traumatized. She did not want to speak forward. The police department did not provide a female for her to talk to concerning this issue, so she refused to talk. That daughter no longer lives in Alaska. She moved, and she will not come back to Alaska for those reasons and for those things that follow. But again, in going to get help for my daughter, I was again told if she had a drug addiction, alcohol addiction, if she was gay, lesbian, there would be places she could go for help, but none for us in our current status. So I too have suffered discrimination. We all do it, and I brought up the bald portion. I've been bald since I was 21, and I've always been the butt of jokes. Also because I'm short. And so the taller guy comes alongside me and takes his hand and wipes across my head. That's discrimination. But we don't do anything about it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Take care. Amanda, are we on 17 now? Okay. Welcome to the meeting.
Hello, my name is William Bean, B-E-A-N from Northeast Anchorage. I'm a proud graduate of Bartlett High School and recently Alaska Pacific University. I am Inupiaq, Aleut, and Athabascan. I am also openly gay. I remember starting elementary school, my mother sat my sister and I down. She told us, if you feel like you're treated any differently from the other kids, you have to tell me. So we said, okay, but we asked her why. So she told us, because we are Alaska Native. I've been denied housing and jobs because we are Alaska Native. Your grandparents have been denied service in restaurants and movie theaters because we are Alaska Native. So I stand here asking you to support this ordinance so that I may enjoy the same protections I experience as Alaska Native. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Lou Storza, S-T-O-O-R-Z-A. I'm from the East Side. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I have heard so many different conversations going on here regarding people with transgender children and homosexual children and whatever. When you look at the statistics, for instance, if you read any of the Center for Disease Control numbers regarding STDs or whatever, you find enormous spikes among the male homosexual communities. I was reading today that transgenders under the age of 26, 48% chance of attempting suicide. And I sit here listening to people saying how much we love these people, whatever. And I say, how can you love these people? You want them to keep doing what they're doing. We need to stop that. I'm looking at, I realize that you want, we don't want discrimination, and we don't. I don't think people are being discriminated against. I think that when people, they'll allow people to continue in lifestyle. I mean, the other day you were talking about smoking in downtown area and how you didn't want smoke around there. Oh, how it affects people, secondhand smoke, all this other garbage. And yet you want people to commit suicide and have lifestyles that commit suicides and have lifestyles that are cut short because of diseases and in drug abuse and all this, which is common in these communities. I question how much these people really love them. And so I think this ordinance, all it does is just provides the ability for certain people to create lawsuits, to attack their enemies, political enemies in this town. I think it's not going to help the people that it claims to help. We spent $22 trillion in welfare to stop poverty back in 1965 to now, and we have more poverty than we ever had. I just ask you to oppose. I oppose this on ordinance, and I would ask you to give it to the people to vote. Trust them in this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, any 16s, any 17s? What number are you, 17? Are you 16, sir?
I don't know, I just gave her she asked.
You have a number? We're going to take the 17, then we'll get to you as soon as Amanda gives you a number. We're doing it by number, sir.
Right.
Amanda should be here in a minute.
She took it.
She took it? Okay, then come up here.
She
Just want to
took it
make sure
from-
we stay in order.
Okay.
She took yours already?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, sir. Sorry to bother you.
Just did when my name is Mark Phillips. I've lived in Anchorage 47 years. I live in Airport Heights. Phillips is P-H-I-L-L-I-P-S. I was Airport Heights Community Council president for 8 years. So I found myself before the assembly many times in those years, in the 80s. I was wondering if I should speak on this topic. I thought many people repeated themselves. I wondered if there was any other topic that I could address that warranted coming up here. And the one thing I thought of was my concern for each of you as individuals. Being a Christian, I realized just how significant this issue was. And you and us are in a pivotal position in each of your and our individual lives concerning this topic. Scripture says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The Lord in His Word. Also says God is not mocked. Whatsoever we sow, we should also reap. This is a pretty significant black and white issue. God is not mocked. God set up a hedge of protection around Alaska all these years for adhering to his word. If you vote yes on this, it sets you up and it sets us up accountable to God individually. He's not going to teach us and deal with us as a group. If you vote on this, I expect God's protection to be reduced. It simply will be. And the evil one will be eager to fill the void. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Pardon?
Thank you for your testimony. We're down to 17s now, I think. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. My name is Connie Moran, and that's M-O-R-A-N, and I am from Midtown. I support the ordinance AO 2015-95. I'm asking for you to please add sexual orientation and gender identity to the list of non-discrimination classifications and requiring fair treatment of applicants and employees, and I'm asking that be in any capacity. I don't feel like race, gender, sexual preference, any of these things should be held against people. Each individual may have idiosyncrasies or faults. I'm sorry, I can't find my words, I'm a little nervous.
Take a deep breath, you'll be fine, we've got time.
Thank you. Overall, I think we as human beings should all be treated equally and fairly, especially in the job market. If you are qualified to do the job, I don't feel that you should be discriminated against because of the way you dress or your race or religion, or if you're bi, trans, any of that. I think we're all human beings and we're trying to work together to make a better and a kinder and a more loving world. And I think if we all come together, we can do that. And I think that we should try to treat each other on an everyday basis as equal. And again, I'm saying I understand that, you know, some people do have problems or whatever, but I think that eventually we can reach solutions for those things also. I know that a lot of people feel that being a homosexual or a bi or trans is a choice, but I don't fully agree with that. I have some personal knowledge that it is not a choice for many people. I have a son that was born with something that's called hypospadias. It's where the urinary tract is not in the right place. And this was actually what we initially thought was a very simple thing. Put the urinary tract where it goes. It was not simple. He's 30 some odd years old, and even back 30 years ago, we were told as this infant, you know, we were holding our infant in our arms, that it wasn't that simple. There had to be gene and chromosome counts and et cetera. So my son went through a big portion of his life hiding his identity.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Your time is up, I'm sorry.
Okay. Please pass
Thank you for your
this.
testimony.
Thank you. For many reasons, please pass this.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Elise Galvin, A-L-Y-S-E, G-A-L-V-I-N. And I, first of all, want to thank you so much for hearing all of us and yesterday. And I guess I would ask you to reflect on how wonderful it is to listen to so many different people, different flavors of Christianity, different religions, different identities, different everything, and yet they all have their same 3 minutes. They're able to come up here and share their words and share how they feel, even share their religion if they want to. Everybody got their 3 minutes, right? And isn't that great government at work? So what I'm saying is, what a great model that is, where everybody has their opportunity, regardless. And when I told my kiddos I was coming here, I have 15 through 24, 4 of them. I only told my 2 youngers, and they said, "I cannot believe you're doing this, Mom." And I said, "What?" And they said, "This is a non-issue. Why are you doing this? Why are you wasting your time?" And I guess what we heard from Ms. Gonzalez earlier, the young, well-spoken woman who said, let's get with the times, Anchorage, basically. So in their mind, the world is set up to be welcoming and loving to everyone, to give everyone that same opportunity in jobs, in housing, in friendships, and everywhere. But apparently, I think that's not true. We still have a little bit of work, and when it says non-discrimination, including sexual orientation and gender identity, that's because we needed to add that in. In our society over history, apparently we were kind of not doing very great with race, so we added that in, right? And now there are some who it's been shown have been discriminated against because of this. So the government is adding that in. You have this great system here today because you set it up that way. And now this ordinance, similarly, is setting up Anchorage to be accepting and to make sure everyone has equal opportunity. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for considering this. And I hope that you're able to make the decision that makes Anchorage get with the times. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your testimony. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. My name is Kippy Lands, and I live in South Anchorage, and I stood before this assembly back in the early 90s on the same issue and sang a song for you guys, I think, too. It seems like a long time ago, so I feel honored and saddened at the same time that I'm having to stand here in front of you again, but it's important. I've been in Alaska since 1987. I first came to Homer and then been in Anchorage for quite a few years. I have heard from lots of different sides of the story, and one thing that I wanted to address mostly is that people who feel like there's not that much discrimination in Anchorage. And I can understand that. If you are not the person that's directly feeling that discrimination, you might not know what's happening. I, as a person, and I'm gay, and have been ever since I knew in adolescence, and I have experienced numerous amounts of discrimination in the state of Alaska throughout the year since I arrived in the state. Actually, even just recently this summer, after we had the Gay Pride celebration downtown, I was walking back to my car with a friend, and I had some very angry man walk by us and say, "I hope you all die, you faggots, you need to go to hell." And then also over a several weeks period, the gay pride flag over the LBGT center downtown was burnt several times. You cannot tell me that there's not discrimination in Anchorage and in Alaska with those kind of things happening. We may not want to see it or look at it, but it's here. It saddens me, and over the years, my friends have said, "Why do you stay there? Why do you stay in a city or a state that doesn't even afford you the right to not lose your job because you're gay, or the right to not be kicked out of where you live because you're gay?" There's people who are great, people who have incredible integrity and that are gay. It makes nothing to do with the kind of person that you are. I've heard people talk about someone who is gay coming into the bathroom and fearing for their children being, preyed upon. That has nothing to do with it. I work in the field of psychology, and it has nothing to do with being gay. It has to do with having that personality disorder of being a predator. So we need to take the fear and the unknowing and the not having the knowledge out of what we are saying and putting out there to our children and to the public. So please vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Hi, my name is Forrest McDonald. I'm from South Anchorage. So I'd like to put a little bit of historical context on this. I don't agree with this statement, but I feel like in order to fully appreciate where we are right now, where we're going, you need to remember where we've been in the past. This is from a trial judge working on the case which went on to become Loving versus Virginia in the year 1959. He said, "Almighty God created the races white, black, yellow, Malay, and red, and he placed them on separate continents. And, but for the interference with his arrangement, there would be no cause for such marriage. The fact that he separated the races shows that he did not intend for the races to mix." So, it's true that it's a very small minority of people now that are being discriminated against. And it is hard for some people that don't fall into that group to empathize with them and understand what they're going through. But to have a situation in Anchorage right now where your boss can legally come to you and say that you're gay, you're fired, you're not allowed to work here anymore, and that's completely legal, I do believe that that's wrong. The fight for civil rights will never be fully over because there's always going to be people that are trying to pull us backwards and take us back to where we've been. But we have to continue to push forward, and we have to continue to fight for it. So I would hope that you adopt the Honorable Mr. Flynn's version of this bill, and basically just remember it's about taking Anchorage into the future and making it fair and equal for all parties involved. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Welcome to the meeting.
So my name is Brianna Thibodeau. I live out by Kincaid Park. My last name is spelled T as in Tango, H-I, B as in Bravo, O, D as in Delta, E as in Echo, A-U, X as in X-ray. My worry over the wording of this ordinance is the spitefulness that will result of the passing of the ordinance worded the way that it is. I have seen, heard, and witnessed accounts of people forcing themselves and even LGBT forcing their beliefs on those who claim to be Christian. Everyone should research schools, places of employment, and businesses before deciding where to spend their money, just as I do. Because I am a Christian, I choose to work in places that discourage religious and political discussions. Why? Because everyone disagrees, and to get along with each other, you should agree to disagree and move on, not argue just to argue or provoke out of spitefulness. I also work for an international company high up on the Forbes or Fortune 500 list. There are all races working there, black, white, East Indian, Transylvanian, Norwegian. There are also lesbian and gays working there in my Anchorage office, as well as offices all over the world. They work at a place that does not discriminate, but won't allow you to force your beliefs on those who do not believe the same as you. Now, I did go to both public school and a private Christian school all my life. I worry that the passing of the ordinance, the way that it's worded, that LGBT will use this ordinance to force their way into working for a Christian organization. Why would an LGBT person want to work at a Christian business who believes against their LGBT beliefs? I don't understand. Why would you want to spend or give your money to an organization or business that believes the complete opposite of you? I choose who I want to support and not support with my time and money, and so can they. You can bet that we will see cases, not a lot, but some, about LGBT trying to secure work at a Christian business. I am not going to use Bible verses today. You already know that I am a Christian. I'm just speaking out of common sense. A few bad apples will ruin it for everyone. I have several gay and lesbian friends, even a cross-dressing drag queen. A few of my friends are even children of some of the LGBT who have testified here today. We are great friends, we are great friends because we do not force our beliefs on each other. If we want to learn, we learn or understand their reasoning. We simply ask it to be explained. But we are not spiteful in the way that we explain or cause arguments. And I've never heard of any discrimination in the workplace or where they decide to go to school or spend their money from then. Maybe that's because we're all young adults and we've grown up in we're part of a different generation. I don't know. They all work in a place they enjoy and are very successful. Some have even started their own businesses, and some are in prestigious and successful positions within their company and or career. A few of them are even new homeowners. We have the responsibility to research and pursue what will make us most happy and living most comfortably. Think of how we choose. Sorry.
Ma'am, thank you for your testimony. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you. My name is Mark Essert, spelled E-S-S-E-R-T, and I have been a resident of Sand Lake for over 30 years. I'm here to testify in favor of passing the ordinance that would ban discrimination against sexual orientation and gender identity. In 2009, I spoke in front of the Anchorage Assembly regarding Ordinance 64 that would have prevented someone from being discriminated against in regards to employment, housing, and delivery of services if they identified as LGBT. The Assembly passed the ordinance, but it was later vetoed by then-Mayor Dan Sullivan. Previous testimony went on for weeks, during which there was much disagreement and dissension between the groups for and against the ordinance. In 2012, a ballot measure was put forth that would also ban discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Ballot measure 5 failed by 58%. There were numerous problems during the election due to negative publicity, a lack of ballots, and missing ballots, some of which reappeared later, giving the appearance of fraud. Some of my friends who identify as LGBT have already lost jobs and housing due to their employers' or landlords' intolerance. Please pass this ordinance and show other communities in Alaska and the lower 48 that our diverse population in Anchorage is represented with tolerance and civility. Thank you for your time, and I hope you make the right decision.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, Mary Hayhoe, Hayhoe. I live in Midtown. Tomorrow I'm going to start my new business. I want to make cakes and cards. And they're going to be so unique. There's no place else on earth you can get these cakes and cards made with different inks and printing presses and recipes. And you're going to come to me because you're getting married or you want a recommitment ceremony. And you're so excited because they're perfect. They're just what you were looking for. You're going to walk in. You got it in mind. You're going to walk up to the counter and explain it to me. And I'm going to say, I'm sorry, we don't serve people with glasses. Nothing personal against you. It's just based on something that somebody wrote many years ago and put in a book. I just don't think it's okay for you to live that way. I have nothing against you, but, you know, there's other places you can go to. Well, congratulations, you've just been discriminated against. Sorry, we don't take a facial hair either. Nothing personal. We can serve you and a few of you. But how does that feel? On a different note, back when I was a junior in high school, and I'm only 5'3", I played on the volleyball team, and I was a starter. And there was a boy in our class, Joel. He was about this tall, and he was big, and he wanted to play volleyball. Well, there wasn't a guys' volleyball team, so he got put on our team. It would have been discriminatory not to let him play volleyball. It wasn't real fun to be across the net from him. He could spike pretty hard. But he came into the girls' locker room, and he was announced before he came in. I wasn't real comfortable with that. I'm sure some of my teammates weren't. Some of our parents weren't. But it would have been discriminatory not to let Joel play volleyball. And even though he played against some other teams in our district, he got to play because that was the right thing. So just know what it feels like to be discriminated against as you consider this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next person.
Hello, my name is Matthew Sapansky. I just thank you for letting me be able to come up here and to share. I just wanted to say that I am a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ is God and that the Bible is His Word. And He, of course, in His Word has said that homosexuality is a sin. And And he also says that, we're supposed to love the sinners, but hate the sin. And so he's the one who tells us what's right and wrong. And our Constitution was set up so that I have religious freedom and to worship Jesus and worship God, to where the Word of God says to worship Him. And I do go to a great Bible-believing church where I get a chance to worship freely. And it just seems like this is something that could take away my religious freedom and for my children. And people can make the choice to be gay in this country, and that's something that they have the choice and the right to do. But the Bible does say it's a sin, and so I love them, and if they were broken down along the side of the road, I would stop and I would try to help them the best I could to fix their car or to give them a ride. But, I still believe that that's a sin, just like murder or just like anything else. Drinking, getting drunk, I believe that those are sins too. But I would strongly urge you to not pass this bill, and I would just pray that you would pray about this and that you would at least bring it to a vote for us public to be able to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next person. Amanda, do we have anybody left? What number? Okay, come on down.
My name is Philip Martin, M-A-R-T-I-N. I live on the east side. Last night we heard a lot about how important it is that we love one another, that we treat each other with respect, and I strongly believe in those tenets of the Golden Rule, and love my neighbor. But we also heard about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, safety, opportunity in the marketplace, freedom from intimidation and harassment, the protection of rights. All those things are so terribly important. We also heard a lot about tolerance. Now, tolerance is something we should all practice every day, but what does it mean? If we look at the Latin word root, it means to bear something, to put up with something, to endure something, to endure with pain if necessary. So when we have tolerance, we put up with something we may not like. Tolerance does not mean that we must approve of a behavior or believe that any type of behavior is acceptable. It just means we should tolerate it. But now where do we draw the line, though? When do we say that we can tolerate something no longer? Chairman Traney, last night you said during an outbreak of applause that if the applause continues, you would empty the chamber. Yeah? You, I believe, I trust, believe that behavior was disrespectful, and you drew a line. You, sir, also understand, are the grandfather of 16 grandchildren. I'm a grandfather.
15.
15, okay, thank you. I'm sorry for that misinformation. But what social change, what would make you draw a line? What things that could occur in society would make you draw a line in their chambers, in their locker rooms, their restrooms, and their classroom? Now, a review of the literature, which was reported this month in the European Psychiatry Journal, it's a journal of the European Psychiatric Association, it was about transsexualism, and it reported that the prevalence of transsexualism was 4.6 in 100,000 individuals. And that, sir, of course, is an incredibly small percentage. Now, the ordinance, if passed, as it regards transgender allowances, allows a very, very small percentage of our society to cross the line, if you will, of reasonable tolerance and subject our children and others to ideas and anatomy that most of the citizens of Anchorage would find to be inappropriate. We have heard both sides of this controversial topic, and they both discuss love and the Golden Rule, and it must apply to both sides. But it's not unloving, it is not unkind, it is not disrespectful to guard our children and others from behaviors and influences which a majority of our society would consider not only unloving and unkind, but disrespectful and harmful. So I respectfully request that when it comes to transsexualism, that you rewrite that section. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Next person. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Hello.
Hi, my name's Thomas Azzarella, Azzarella. I'm from the great neighborhood of Fairview. Whoop, whoop, Fairview. So I'm here tonight. I just want to thank all of you right now for being here, for bringing this up, for it being such a civil debate too, and discussion, and really creating that space for everyone to be here. I am here in favor of the ordinance, the S version of the ordinance, and part of the reason why I'm in favor of that S variance on the ordinance I was really thinking of the idea of, again, religious exemption from employment and what that means. I completely agree. If I am going to be a pastor of a church that does not fall in line, that homosexuality or being transgendered or LGBT fits outside of my beliefs, and I am the preacher, that would probably be a place that I wouldn't go work for. But when we think of other organizations, especially in our nonprofit social sector, that have a religious base behind them, we're talking about Covenant House, Catholic Social Services, Lutheran Services. We're talking about a wide array of different services inside of our communities that are religious faith-based organizations, or may have started that way initially, and those organizations have started opening themselves up. So I strongly urge you to make sure that if we are passing this ordinance, and I do hope you do pass this ordinance, that you include that piece that really protects LGBT individuals from being discriminated against both in work and employment and housing. We know both state, federal, and local municipal dollars are going to support many of our nonprofit organizations that have faith-based sections to them. We encourage you to continue investing in them. They are great partners in making our community stronger for us. But again, no one has the right to be discriminated against based on their sexual orientation. Just as other protected groups are, such as religion, ability, race, age, marital status, those are all different protective classes. This is just one additional protective class that faces an unjust burden inside of our community. So again, I thank you all. I thank everyone in the audience too. I might or might not be the last person, so pizzazz to that. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you, sir. Next individual to testify. Welcome to the meeting.
Short. My name is Tika Bainey, and I'm from the Chugiak area. I want to say I am a Catholic. I do not believe in divorce. That does not mean I think people who have been divorced should be denied their rights that protect them. Say it with me, marital status. That is also a behavior, in my opinion. And I want to state for the record that I do not believe the LGBT community qualifies under behavior. This ordinance, I do not feel at all violates my rights as an individual or my religious freedom. And with that, I want to say I absolutely fully support this. And thank you, Mr. Evans and Flynn, for bringing this and working together. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, ma'am. Next individual. Amanda, is there anybody left? Is there anybody that still wishes to address the assembly on this issue that's not signed up? Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none? Have you testified before?
I have not.
Come forward then. We need your full name, spell your last name, and give us your place of residence.
Michael Fuller, F-U-L-L-E-R. I'm on the east side of town, and I oppose this measure. I feel that it would cause interference into businesses, as businesses have to put in extra bathrooms, they have to put in extra facilities that would have to accommodate for all sorts of different lifestyles that come in. As you know, you guys have all heard that this, the whole bathroom issue obviously is a big deal. It costs a lot of money for small businesses, and it does take that amount. And it's an unnecessary cause when we are not seeing any documented cases of discrimination. People are not coming in with lawyers. People can sue for anything. We are a sue-happy society, and we are not seeing that happen. It surprises me that nobody has got a lawyer yet and come and sued anybody. And so just being as a small business owner, I do understand that that is a case, and that's something that happens. People get sued all the time, and yet this has not happened as I am concerned, or as I know of, since '09. And so it just, as far as the society is concerned, I'm not sure that it is necessary for this to happen. But I understand that this is the assembly. I understand what's going on. It is interesting to me that this is within a set date, that this was brought up extremely quick. There is a lot of language in this that doesn't go far enough to protect religious liberties. And I would encourage you in that regard to protect our religious rights. As far as the Constitution is concerned, our First Amendment is there for a reason. And I would just encourage the Assembly to continue to go further with that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for being here. You're next.
Hi.
Welcome to the meeting.
My name is Candace Mersdorf. My last name is Mersdorf. I am a landlord. My husband and I own a business, and I'm a sister to 3 sisters, and I have 2 girls. And I wanted to tell you something that I had on my mind. My cousin has a friend whose husband dressed as a woman and went into a college locker room, took videos, was caught, was put in jail and had probation. This was several years ago. This is about 12 years ago. So at that time, we didn't have the camera phones and the videos and all the technology that we have now. And I feel like if this ordinance passes, you're going to have a lot more people putting on women's clothing and portraying themselves as a woman, going into locker rooms, dressing rooms, bathrooms, for the purpose of taking videos or, being a predator, pedophile, whatever. I'm not concerned about the person who has been transitioning 4 or 5 years or whatever. I'm not worried about that. What I'm concerned about for my kids, for my sisters, for my friends, family, is the ordinance opening up a way for people who are looking for opportunities to prey on victims or children or vulnerable people. So I just want you to think about that. And I also own property, and I'm a renter, or I'm a landlord. And nowhere on my application anywhere is there anything about sexual orientation, sexual practices. I really don't care about that. What I care about is if you're having parties, if you're trashing my house, if you're doing drugs. Those are the kind of things that get you evicted. And I feel like if those things are going on and I am trying to evict them, that they would maybe blame it on their sexual orientation. And so I don't have money to get into lawsuits. I don't have money to do that. And I just feel like, we're not seeing the discrimination. And I just ask that you would not pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wish to testify that's not testified already? Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing no one. They need to come here, ma'am.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could help this gentleman understand, unfortunately, you only get to testify once, sir. So
once is it.
Yeah. I'm glad you remembered me. Don't worry. I'm half elephant.
Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Curtis Johnson. Last name CURTIS-JOHNSON. West side of Anchorage. I wasn't planning on testifying tonight, so forgive me if I'm not very eloquent. But I came in tonight and I've heard multiple people talk about not seeing evidence of discrimination, and I'm just wondering, because sitting here listening, I've heard people say that being gay was essentially equivalent to murder. It's a sin just like murder. That to me, I can't argue on an intellectual level here. I can just say that emotionally that is terrifying, and I've grown up in that terror. I am a lesbian. Most of the people I know in their teens have contemplated suicide. The gay people I know, the transgender people I know. I don't understand how people can say that discrimination isn't a thing that they've ever heard of or ever experienced, because it's reality, and it scares all of us all the time. And that's all I can say, and please keep it in mind. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anybody else wishing to address the assembly on this item that has not testified already? Come forward, sir. Yeah. Tell us your name, spell your last name, and tell us what part of Anchorage you live in.
Hi, my name is Frank Baines. I'm a Christian, and I'm against this ordinance.
What part of town do you live in, sir?
Pardon me?
What part of town do you live in?
I live in Midtown.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, as far as homosexuality, it's an abomination to God, and I'll give you proof to that. In the Bible, it says that Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed because of its homosexuality and its evil. And there's been many cases that people in countries and regions have lost their blessings because they're evil, such as homosexuality. I believe we need to get back in line with God's word and start doing the right thing and go against ordinances like you're proposing. This is a very bad thing to go against God's word. Someday, each one of you are going to vote for this. Are going to have to answer to God about this, and you're going to have to justify what you did, and you're going to have to live with the circumstances. So, for out of a reverence to God, I hope you start doing the right thing instead of going providing protection with people who are doing something that's immoral. I hope you guys start doing the right thing and start looking at the Bible and do it the right way. All right, thank you.
Thank you for testifying, sir.
Yeah.
Next individual.
You're sitting here laughing, but you won't let us speak out. That's not
Please, we're not going to have catcalls coming from the audience. I wasn't kidding when I said I'll clean this place out. Let the people testify. Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, my name is Miranda Walso, W-A-L-S-O, and I live in Chugakigo River. I actually wasn't going to testify today because I see both sides of the issue, and I don't think there's a perfect solution either way. I decided to testify after listening to the testimony of others, and one of the things that stuck out is how many times people referred to those that had testified before them as belonging to a group. They were talking about their friends who were LGBT. They didn't say my friend Tom. They didn't say my sister Mary. They said, I know people who belong to this group. Or they talked about their friends who were religious or were a certain type of Christian. When we stop seeing people as people and we start referring to them as a group, no matter the status, that's an indication that it is a difference. It's things that make us all different. One of the things that makes this country great is the fact that it hasn't always had the same protections. Religious freedom was not included in the Constitution originally. That's why it's the First Amendment. One of the things that makes this country so strong is that when we see something that we haven't done or that we believe in, we include it. Religious freedom is one of the tenets that the rest of our country was built on, and it deserves that protection. Gun rights, the same thing. These were not always done perfectly. This is another example of people bringing something forward and saying, we think we've seen something different. It doesn't have to be prevalent. It doesn't have to be happening all the time for it still to be wrong. What this ordinance does is say it's wrong to discriminate for someone because of this. Not that you are or have been or ever would. Simply that as a society, as a people, this is a law we do not, this is a line we don't want crossed. This is to say this is wrong. Another issue. I'm not sure quite what bathrooms everybody's been going to, but it's very different than the ones I have. Somebody who's going to go into a bathroom and prey on someone else is going to do that regardless of any law. If someone who's going to victimize a child as an adult is going to do that no matter what you have in place. That's why it's wrong. Doesn't matter what we say or do, people are going to violate that. What this does is it takes a stand and says for all of those who are good citizens, who do obey the law, who respect that, we come together and we recognize that this is another time when we're saying something is not okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anybody else wishing to address this that's not already addressed us on this item? Please come forward. Anyone at all? Quickly, because I will bring the gavel down. This meeting will be over with.
Well, I think the meeting should probably be over with a lesbian. You think it's a good idea? I live in Anchorage, Seattle, and San Francisco. It's 2015 people. What we're trying to do here in Anchorage was done in 1970 by Harvey Milk. Really, Anchorage, you embarrass me on a national scene. The mayor, who happens to be gay in Seattle, was elected there a couple years ago. The things they deal with in Seattle is a transgender person gets attacked by a bunch of college yahoos, and the yahoos go to jail for assault and battery. And the message is clear. There is no discrimination against people in Seattle. In San Francisco, it's the safe haven for any LGBT, trans, anything, difference. You walk down that street with a freedom and comfort that I've never known living here 30 years in Alaska. Why can't a lesbian who's married to a woman hold her hand and walk down the streets of Anchorage comfortably like I do in Seattle and in San Francisco? What is the difference? What is it to other people who I choose to love? I come from a very religious family in Cleveland, Ohio. I was just there visiting with all of them again. We're growing exponentially in Cleveland. We're very involved with the Catholic Church in Cleveland. Sue Uhrig, who is a very big, very involved with the Catholic Church in Anchorage, we talk about the changes that we're even seeing with the Pope. The Pope is better on gay rights than Anchorage. People, seriously? Am I right? You know, there are institutions that realize you can't push people away. The Catholic Church is trying to bring the flock back. How they're bringing them back is saying love, acceptance. May not be for you. We can understand that. But don't tell that person how they should live their life.
Thank you for your testimony, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify? I want you in front. If you're not there, I want you down in these chairs. We're not going to play this game tonight of popping up all over here. So, sir, come on down and take your seat. If there's anybody else, take the seat next to him. Because when that seat's empty, I'm closing the meeting down. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you, sir. My name is Jeremiah Stephen, South Anchorage, longtime resident. Pat, how you doing? I appreciate you guys taking the time, and as a stakeholder in the community, I think you owe it to our community to put this out to vote and let the people express how they feel. Never thought of myself as an overachiever, but as I was sitting there writing some things down on how I was going to introduce myself as a business owner, a licensed process server, a realtor, a dealer, car dealer, not a drug dealer. Let's get that straight.
You want to see Mr. Hall?
Yeah, okay. A member of the professional oil and gas industry here in Anchorage. It looks like as an Alaska native, I'm trying to do something with my life to set an example for others. And so I'm actually doing some homework for class tomorrow for my master's program, which is in project management. And as a stakeholder, I think you guys owe it to your community to send it out to vote, because trying to make a decision in an environment where you could be seen as making the decision in a vacuum, and it affects so many people, so many of those projects that get done like that turn out to be unsuccessful. And I think in this community, as so many people have stated, Anchorage is a great place to live. The crime rate's decent. It's a beautiful place to live, to say the least. So I think you guys owe it to the people who put you in these seats up here to send it back out to them and let the people make the decision. And if it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm against it. I'm opposed it. I just don't want to open Pandora's box as a business owner and have to make those kind of decisions, as a landlord having to make those decisions, or even as a process server. I don't want to have to go to the door and deliver someone's paperwork and have them say that I'm being discriminatory against them by leaving the paperwork and having to show up in court to prove that I did, when that process server's bond is my word. So there's just so many things that come into play, and I think you guys owe it as members of our community to put it back out there and let the people vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Sir? Sir, you're next.
Hi, my name is Robbie Hoke, and I live in Anchorage on the east side. I didn't mean any disrespect by coming down late. I just walked in, so
All right.
pardon me.
I just want to get everybody where you're supposed to be.
Pardon me?
Don't worry about it, sir.
I heard the testimony of this last lady and talking about the Pope. If the Pope read the Bible, he'd understand or read that homosexuality is a sin. I guess you can see by the shirt I'm wearing what side I'm on. But I don't mean any ill will against anybody on the other side of the controversy here. We need to love the other side. We need to love each other. There are laws in place, Mr. Honeman. You know, you've served the people of Anchorage in law enforcement. There are laws on the books at this time that will protect people. They don't need special rights. They don't need other rights. They don't need another law put in place to protect them. There are already laws in place to do that. I hope I'm not repeating what's already been said. This is my first night here. I had class last night, and I wasn't able to be here. I would hope that you guys, excuse me, I don't mean to say you guys, but I mean you assembly members, that you'd reach out to other places that have enacted these laws to see if they've really been beneficial and helped, or just been another piece of paper, that another law that's put on the books to have to manage or to have to abide by and enact, and take money and time away from other things that I think are important to be thinking and governing the area of Anchorage about. I'm not sure what else can be said besides what has already been said. I know I said that, but it's important, I believe, to have an open mind and to think about the things that need to be governed. I hope you would not come in with a bias and think that there have been things done wrong in Anchorage against people that are homosexual or that way. There are things that haven't been done here, but have been said that they've been done, and I hope you'll do the research and look at what has been done and what hasn't occurred actually in Anchorage. This is a really good community we have here in Anchorage, and I think that when I walk down the sidewalk and I say hello to somebody and they say hello back, we got a good...
Your time is up, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Honeman, I sent you an email about the ice hockey rates a while back, and I'd certainly like a response, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Last person. Over the meeting, sir.
Hello, my name is Christopher Constant, C-O-N-S-T-A-N-T. I'm from Fairview. I did promise some of you I wouldn't speak. I'm about to go back on a promise. I apologize. I've learned some things over the last 2 days. First, that there's a lot of fear in this community. Second, that there is discrimination. I've heard very direct personal stories, and I've shared personal stories with some of you. The thing that I've learned about the people opposing this is that what it appears to me is that they don't discriminate, but they wish for you to reserve the right for them to discriminate. To put it as plainly as I can, we don't discriminate is what I heard over and over again, but don't take the right to discriminate away from us, because that would be against God's law or Jesus. It's so very interesting that this meeting started with a barrage of people who are Christian, but to some who aren't Christian enough, or who don't worship the same Christian God, I guess, because they see within the text of the Scripture a command to be good neighbors, and to love, and to respect, and to provide, and to be civil. Instead of this other doctrine that says, reserve for me the right to not serve him or her. Reserve for me the right not to serve him in the name of my God. This is crazy. And this is an idea whose time is past. What's time now is to move forward with a fully inclusive protection for LGBT people, so that we can take at least a little bit of the pain and suffering that this society lays on the backs of the less fortunate. It's our job to do that as servants to this community, is to relieve the burden, not to promote the burden. I personally thank Mr. Evans, Mr. Flynn, all of you for sitting here and keeping the doors open and hearing from the people. And I think I'll end on a little story, a thing I noticed last night as I got home. Some of you may know Miss Johnson's son, Ross, was recently married and is on a honeymoon in Germany right now. And his train, as he was entering the city, Munich, was swarmed by Syrians who were fleeing a government of tyranny that was murdering them, right? And I'm sitting in Anchorage, Alaska, having a difficult dialogue that's been completely civil. And I think we live in a wonderful place. And I thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to address us on this item? Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none, testimony calls Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to change the order of the day to take up item 14J prior to order item 14I.
Second.
Moved and seconded to take up item 14J before 14I. Is there any objection to that by the body? So ordered, Madam Clerk. Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the S1 version of item 14J.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Discussion. Is there any objection to that? Seeing none, that item is now in front of us. Mr. Flynn.
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is you wish to postpone.
I wish to adjourn the meeting. We'll take this thing up again for action the 20.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we postpone action on items 14J and 14I to the meeting of September 29.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any objection? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk. So ordered by the body.
Second.
We're adjourned.